It's the long, slow fade of a soft summer afternoon into dusk. It's the powerful headlights drilling into the night. It's the track, 8 miles long, linking 3 towns with 200-mile-an-hour straights. It's riding the Ferris wheel, the drifting smoke of campfires, the mingling of many languages. 250,000 people lining the fences. It's the 24 hours of Le Mans. Audi versus Peugeot. Both teams powered by silent turbo diesels. Both with menacing dorsal fins. Both designed for high top speed. Peugeot won 2 years ago, Audi last year.
Audi were pushed back down the stairs last year by Peugeot, but they are back.
Setting the stage for today's stunning confrontation, a battle neither team can afford to lose. In the GT classes, Ferrari, Lotus, Aston Martin, Corvette, Porsche, BMW. Each manufacturer confident of its product. Each willing to risk the long odds for a chance to win Le Mans, where victory guarantees credibility. From its beginnings in the 1920s, this race has been about the car. But each car's connection to success or failure lies in the hands of those who drive it. And the driver must have judgment as well as speed. He must push hard every moment, but how hard is too hard? He must take chances, but how bold is too bold? One man has the answers. Tom Christensen, driving this year for Audi, has won here a record-breaking 8 times and is going for a 9th. Le Mans, it's commitment, a year's work for one race, always knowing the failure of a single part or a single moment of inattention will spell defeat. It's exhaustion and the heavy hand of luck. As the long day wanes, the once bright cars are pale and battered, streaked with oil. The great crowd will flood the track. The winners will soar on its rising tide. Who will they be? The answer lies ahead. The 79th running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans is next.
Scenes like these, passion like this, cars like these, it could only be Le Mans. In the past 2 weeks, we've been treated to the Indy 500 and Monaco Grand Prix. Now it's time for another classic, and it's with much pleasure we say welcome to Speed's live coverage of the one, the only 24 Hours of Le Mans. And those magical scenes on the front straight. Hi folks, welcome. Lee Diffie along with Brian Till, Calvin Fish, Dorsey Schrader, Le Mans winners, Scott Pruitt and Justin Bell, Jamie Howe, Andrew Marriott and Greg Creamer. And we're here for 25 hours on Speed and Speed.com, and that's what they're all racing for, the big trophy. Guys, let's get straight to it. What are we looking for? Dorsey, kick us off.
I think what we're about to witness is going to be quite extraordinary. When you consider Le Mans and its 8-mile lap length, and then you think about the top 6 cars in qualifying, cars from Peugeot, cars from Audi, all qualified within a half a second, it gives you a great idea about what the next 24 hours are going to be like.
Scott?
With cars this close, the big question is strategy. How are these guys going to manage fuel? Who's going to get better fuel mileage and tires? Can you double stint them, triple stint them, and maybe go for 4? It's going to be hard to say, but strategy is going to play a big part when you look at these cars being this close.
Cal?
Lee, there's been some big rule changes this year for the prototypes. The power has been reduced dramatically. The P1s have about 150 to 200 horsepower less, so they'll no longer blow by those GT cars like years past. There'll be a very different dynamic to the race here today, I think. And I look to see how aggressive these prototype drivers will be in traffic and just how creative they'll be with new passing zones today.
How about you, Brian?
Well, Calvin mentioned GT. I'm telling you, the GT battle will be just as intense. While the field might be a little bit more spread out, take a look at this. Oliver Gavin, Dominic Farnbacher qualified 4th and 5th, but they did the exact same lap time to the 1,000th of a second around 8+ miles of racetrack here at Le Sarthe. I'm telling you, GT, it's tight, and it's going to be intense.
Let's show you some practice and qualifying highlights, and it did not get off to a great start for the defending race winner, Romain Dumas at Mulsanne Corner.
Yeah, he claims there were no yellow flags being displayed. Also the Audi lower cockpit situation there, the high fenders, he said he just didn't see, and we may see more of that during the next 24 hours.
Crunching that Aston Martin. Frank Montagny had an anxious moment in his Peugeot, almost colliding with the Pescarolo.
But ultimately, it was 3-time pole winner Stéphane Zarazin who set the fastest lap of the day in the number 8 Peugeot.
Flying. However, the less lesser spoken about number 2 Audi had more to say about this, because those boys set the pace with Benoit Trellier, the man who cheated death here a couple of years ago, came back in phenomenal style.
Then Mr. Le Mans, TK himself was going for it. 2 minutes to go, he gets it wrong in Tete Rouge. There you see it, major impact with the tyre barrier. They have repaired the old bruised Helga, as they call it now.
Congratulations from Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich to Benoit Trellier, and we show you the top 5. You may have heard Dorsey mention it earlier. Just look at the margin, 0.4 of a second blanketing those top 5. This is setting up for a phenomenal race. Hey, let's go to our defending race winner, Greg Creamer, standing by.
Thanks very much, gentlemen. Mike Rockenfeller, you had a great win last year. A little bit of good fortune playing into it this year. You show up with an R18 with the new regulations that looks to be an absolute warrior. You're the defending champ. Any extra pressure?
Well, I don't think it's extra pressure. I mean, we felt a lot of pressure release last year. I think this year it doesn't help, you know, that we won last year. It doesn't mean anything. It's still a long race, and you have to be focused. Hopefully we can do a job like last year. No mistakes, spend no extra time in the pits. That's the key always in Le Mans. And definitely we have a great weapon in our hands. I think the R18 looks not only good, it's also fast, and hopefully we can bring it back to victory lane.
A lot has been made about the ultralight technology that's gone into the car, but how does that affect its sturdiness over 24 hours?
Well, we will see. I think we did a lot of testing. Definitely you can see that the car is pushed to the limits, you know, in every area, and that's what we had to do to catch up the gap we had to Peugeot, and I think we did a good job, and our technicians did a really good job. So we will see. I mean, now it's the first real test in racing conditions, and I hope the car lasts and we won't have any problems.
After Romain Schunt, Diesela okay?
Diesela is okay. The mechanics called it Diesela. I heard that just now on the grid, which I think is quite funny. No, the car's okay. It was just the front nose. It looked more, and for safety reason we said, okay, leave it on the track, and they brought it back on the truck, and like I said, the car was really fine, just the front nose was broken.
All right, Rocky, good luck. Look for a repeat. And, of course, Audi sweeping the front row. They fired the first shot, but how about the roar of the lion? With more on that, let's go to the other end of pit lane and Justin Bell.
Well, what a race, what a place, and I'm standing here with one of the man of the hour, Simon Pagenaud. 2 years ago, you were with the private squad, but you were one of the fastest drivers. Then you joined the factory team, and now here you are, the fastest of the Peugeot drivers on track. I mean, it must be an amazing feeling representing your country in what is going to be the epic race.
Yeah, you know, it's a legendary race. It's a great feeling to be here on the grid, sitting up front. I'm very happy with the car. You know, I'm very happy because we didn't focus on qualifying, which is what you want to look for when you do 24-hour race. And we have a very good car, very consistent. I hope it's going to be reliable. You can never say in Le Mans, it's such a tough race. But we've done all we were supposed to do, all the testing. We know what tire to put at what time. So I'm quite confident, but it will be a very tough race.
Well, he may not have tried very hard, but I tell you what, that you've got the power of your people here. There's an entire grandstand over there all yelling Simon.
Yeah, it's nice, it's fantastic, you know, it's nice to be recognized by the people in my country, and even though I race in America most of the time, but it's the same in America, so you know, I enjoy coming here in Le Mans. It's a big event like the Indy 500.
Okay, it's too late for anyone else to act on this information, but what did they say to you in the driver's briefing? How in depth, how much pressure was it?
There isn't any pressure, which is very enjoyable. The team is very relaxed. Everybody knows we've worked a lot. We've worked really hard since after the last 24 hours of Le Mans, so there's no pressure, just go for it.
There's no pressure, but from where we are, there's pressure to watch it. Simon, in my opinion, is the man in the car.
Thanks, Justin. We're going to be talking a lot about that Peugeot 908 and the Audi R18. Let's take a look at the tail of the tape.
Well, both turbo diesels lead, 3.7 liters in both the Audi and the Peugeot, but V6 versus V8. Now, the question is fuel mileage. Which one will have the better fuel mileage? The other thing to note, both of these cars, coupes or coupes, for the Peugeot drivers and mechanics and the team, they're used to that. They've had that machine since 2007. For the Audi drivers and mechanics, the coupe, it's brand new.
The car that everybody looks towards is the one that houses Le Mans legend Tom Christensen and two-time winner Alan McNish. Let's hear from Alan now.
We're actually going to hear from his co-driver, Dindo Capello. It was in 2006, though, when Audi debuted here at Le Mans with the diesel power. Dindo, you've been involved with every iteration of the diesel Audi. How is it that the V6 is able to get so much power?
Yeah, I think we have very good engineers. That's the reason why we can get very good power for any engine size we get. But joking apart, I think they really work hard. I think it was so difficult to make this engine running at such a high level, talking about power and about torque, because you know with a 3.7 engine, it's what we achieve is something just unbelievable, just unique. And yeah, what to say more? Now we will see. I think we did enough endurance test about reliability. We are quite, I would say, safe, even though in such a long race you never know, because you know Le Mans always can take some surprise. But we are well prepared, both in terms of speed and in terms of reliability. Then you know, in a few minutes the race we will start, and after that we will see if what we have done was good enough to be successful at the end of the day.
Another team that's well prepared is Peugeot, and they're down with Andrew Marriott.
Well, Nick Manassian, the Frenchman who lives in England, I'm not quite sure why, Nick, here for your 12th race. This is going to be a titanic struggle.
It's going to be a titanic one, as you say. You know, he's so tight. I think I've never seen something like this. You know, in qualifying it was like a right battle. You know, like I've never seen before. The performance of the car very, very close together. And again, it wasn't like this in the last 4 years. We always had the advantage of pure speed, you know. So now it's going to be playing in the wheel, and you got to be not too silly, you know, not fighting to the bone too much and don't make a mistake. It's still a 24-hour race, you know.
Luck will come into it. Can you make your own luck to a degree?
You can make your own luck, you know. Your own luck is looking after the car as much as you can without losing too much time, you know. You got to find the right balance with that.
Nick Manassian looking for his first victory here at Le Mans.
And he talks about balance. They'll need it both in speed and aggression in the LMP2 category. Straka Racing, they won on strategy and speed in 2010. They were very quick on Wednesday night. Team owner Nick Leventis took over the 42 machine. Big problem in the Dunlop curves.
Talk around the paddock was about Nissan power, and at the end of the tape, it was this car, the number 26 Signatech Orica Nissan, driven by Sohail Yari, who pulls off pole position.
While it was not nearly as close in the LMP2 category, some 2 seconds between the top 5, it is spread out amongst the engine manufacturers. 2 Nissans, 2 Judd BMWs, and 1 HPD Acura. This will be, once again, a battle of strategy and endurance.
From the high banks of Daytona to the long straights of Le Mans, it's quite the journey, but NASCAR star Michael Waltrip has made it. We'll tell you more on the other side of this break.
Speed's coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans is brought to you by Chevrolet and America's premier sports car, Corvette.
Not only Corvette, but American manufacturers, teams and drivers have a rich history here at Le Mans. That tradition continues. It's a massive weekend for Scott Tucker. He is the one and only American driver in either prototype class. We wish Scott and his Level 5 team all the best. And how about Joey Hand? Kicked the year off with victory at the Rolex 24 at Daytona, and he is here on his debut appearance. We wish Joey all the best. Hey, speaking of him, it was a good start for his GTE Pro team, the 56 Sandy Prio and Dirk Muller. And Joey, this car was quickest on Wednesday night. However, at the hands of Andy Prio, Scott,
you can see there's rocks on the track, and unfortunately the car gets away from it a little bit. The good news is they got the car fixed. It ran very good this morning in morning warm-up. I think they're going to be, I mean, as we're talking, it's going to be an incredible fight, not only in the prototypes, but also in GT.
And just like Dumas, Prio was a little critical of the marshal, saying, why didn't you tell me there was something on the track? The AF Corsa Ferrari with former F1 driver Giancarlo Fisichella has been fast. It did not get the class pole. This car did, the sister BMW, with second-time Le Mans appearance for Augusto Farfus. There's the top 5. Scott has already flagged it. This is going to be an incredible battle. BMW, Porsche, Ferrari, Corvette. It's incredible. Throw Lotus in there as well. We got 24 and 3/4 hours to talk more about that. That's for sure. All right, let's hear from one of our American drivers.
I'm standing by with Joey Hand. Joey, you've had an epic start to the season, obviously. Congratulations on that with the win at Daytona, the win at Sebring. A chance now to come here to Le Mans and win another 24-hour race. It's your first time here, hard to believe, and first time with Schnitzer. How's things looking?
Things look pretty good. You know, I've been telling people I think this is our best shot to win. For me, my first time here, it's definitely my best shot to win, right? But, you know, the racing's about momentum, and I got some good momentum. I've won already a few times this year in BMW-powered cars, and this BMW Motorsport team, they already fixed the car from a crash the other day, and they're great. They've welcomed me here. It's so far been a great experience for me, the whole thing. So I'm looking forward to going after it, but, you know, I got to tell you, I'm always here to win. I never come to lose, so I'm trying to win every race. If I win this one, it'd be great.
Well, Joey's enjoying his first experience as an American near Paris, but of course he's got competition from BMW to Bowtie. Here's Andrew Marriott.
Well, Oliver Gavin, what a scene down here. It's your 11th Le Mans. You're looking for your 4th victory, but the last couple of races you haven't managed to make the finish.
No, it's last few times here at Le Mans, it has been a bit tough for us, but you know, the team is extremely well prepared. The C6R is you know, fighting fit. It's a 100-year of Chevrolet, so you know, we're ready to go. You know, it looks like the BMW's got quite a bit of pace, but I think in terms of long runs, I think we should be right there with them. Ferrari's here with a new car, and Porsche's always going to be there, so I think it's going to be battle royal in GTE Pro. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah, GTE, I think it stands for GT Excitement.
Certainly is. It's super exciting, and you know, had a great battle last year with Jamie Mello in the Ferrari, and you know, hope to be able to recreate some of that, you know, this year. So yeah, really looking forward to it. It's always a sense of excitement right now on the grid, but we know we've got a huge race ahead of us, 24 hours.
Patrick Long is the only American Porsche factory driver. He's been racing in this event since 2004. And Patrick, you have 2 wins, but none of them are with Flying Lizard. How ready is this team for today's race?
Well, I think they're ready. We've had a tough week, a lot of trying difficulties, a little bit of accident, a little bit off pace. But I think we're ready to go. It's going to be a lot of competition. We're starting 12th. We're not used to being that far back, but the team's prepared very, very hard. They've kept their head down the whole time. Jürgen and Lucas are always pushing hard, so it's just an honor to be here. This is my 8th one in a row, and I enjoy it more and more every year.
Well, after a lifetime in motorsport, it's probably pretty hard to find a new challenge, but Michael Waltrip's popped over to France. Here you are, an Italian car, very quick one, at the biggest French race. You certainly jumped in at the deep end.
I'm totally international, Justin. I've got this. After 25 years of racing in NASCAR, I suspected there was racing going on around the world, and the invention of the internet and Speed TV confirmed that, and I'm just so thankful that I can be here and experience it. It's such an honor to be here.
Well, you took a boat over, obviously, and now you're here. But you described to me earlier in great terms, you are in obviously a multi-class race, which is a new experience. But when the Peugeot and Audi come by, you described it as almost violent. Tell your fans what that's like.
You're driving down the straightaway and you see lights in your mirror, and you don't know whether those are lights of GTE cars or the prototypes. And really quickly you figure out it's a prototype because it's coming like a bullet, and you just sort of squinch down and it goes by, and they're sucking up the earth. I mean, they've got so much downforce ground effects, it just almost pulls you sideways, and you have to get over that and then focus on the turn. The funniest thing that happened so far, one of those prototypes went around me going into Indianapolis, and when it did, it went so fast, I went, wow, I wanted to watch them, and all of a sudden, whoa, I'm off the road. So there's many challenges for me. This is the first time in the 458, obviously the first time ever to Le Mans, and I'm living it up. Me and Rob both want to say hi to our moms. Is that cool?
No. Anyway, we will be following you all the way through the race, I hope, and a man that is finding out that turning right in France is not as easy as it looks.
We wish Michael and his team all the best. The final class is GTE AM, and we want to draw your attention there to the 3rd place car. It is the 2nd Flying Lizard Motorsports entry. It's got a very good chance at winning this class. It seems every year we come to Le Mans there is something special, and this year we're celebrating the 20th anniversary of Mazda's win at the hands of Johnny Herbert, Bertrand Gachot and Volker Weidler in the Mazda 787B. Well, that car is at Le Mans this year, and Hollywood star and team owner Patrick Dempsey was invited to take part in something very, very special. He's there with 91 race winner Johnny Herbert, and Patrick, as you see, got to climb aboard and got to do laps of Le Mans in a very, very special time for him and for Mazda and for everybody involved in this project. Justin caught up with him.
it's a very special moment for me, and certainly a little nervous getting into the car. This is a valuable car.
Yeah.
It's such an important car for Mazda, and what they achieved is remarkable after so many attempts to finally break through with a rotary engine, which is phenomenal. And it's hard to believe it's been 20 years. It's flown by for everyone, and it's great to see the drivers here today and the team that was here, and just to be a part of that history. And hopefully we'll be here next year with Mazda from an LMP2. That's our goal.
Good on you, Patrick. You saw him there getting some acknowledgement from your Giro Tirada, Le Mans legend. And there have been many legends born here at this place over the years, so many magical moments. When we come back, we'll tell you about some breaking news involving one very special American. That man there, Dan Gurney, the 67 winner. More right after this.
Le Mans, its commitment, a year's work for one race, always knowing the failure of a single part or a single moment of inattention will spell defeat. It's exhaustion and the heavy hand of luck. As the long day wanes, the once bright cars are pale and battered, streaked with oil. The great crowd will flood the track. The winners will soar on its rising tide. Who will they be? The answer lies ahead. The 79th running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans is next.
Countdown until we see the tricolor fly. Just 5.5 minutes until Le Mans begins. There is no one better here at Le Mans than Tom Christensen. The 8-time winner is back again to make it 9. One thing that TK requests is to speak to his dear friend Calvin Fish, our own Calvin Fish, before each and every 24 Hours of Le Mans. That is going to happen once again. Cal?
Hey, Tom, great to see you, mate. This year's race promises to be a stunner. It's a very different dynamic this year. Audi on the pole, first time since 2006, but less power this year for the P1s. How critical will dealing with traffic today be for you and your teammates, mate?
There's a lot on the plate. The cars are covered by almost nothing in qualifying, the 6 manufacturer from Peugeot Audi. And with the regulation, I mean, the top speed, or actually getting to the top speed, is not a big difference within the classes like the previous year. So we're all gonna fight for the same tarmac and trying to obviously to keep the momentum. And this is going to be a mental strain for everyone.
Tom, Thursday night, pole position up for grabs. Looked like you were going for it. Explain what happened at Tete Rouge and how bruised is your new baby you've nicknamed Helga?
Helga is just fine, but that's also due to fantastic mechanics, obviously. The car was good on Thursday. It's better now. But we put a new set of rubber because we all three were happy with the car. And I kept running into traffic, and I just had the last lap just to improve these 410s, which I have done with quite some traffic. I made a mistake at Tete Rouge, just nitzed it in a little bit too fast, and it swapped corners. And 100% my mistake. But Helga is in top form, so is the team, so is the other cars. Everything looks good for a great race.
Tom, good luck in your quest for number 9, and Lee says he's going to beat you next time on the golf course. No problem.
he wish.
The three of us are keen golfers. We're not necessarily good, but we are keen. Each and every year at the annual ACO, the Automobile Club de l'Ouest press conference, there is something special. FIA President Jean Todt on hand, and Jean-Claude Plessart, the man that heads up the ACO, were there to announce something very, very special. In addition to the World Endurance Championship, which we'll get into later, it is a very special car that will debut here next year. And yes, you heard about it with the 2012 IndyCar program. IndyCar's loss is sports cars' gain because Scott Pruitt, the Delta Wing, will run with Highcroft Racing here next year.
That's exactly right. I spent a bunch of time with this car on different simulations on different tracks like Mid-Ohio and so on. And it's a completely new concept, and it's going to be real interesting. It's exciting also to see it come to life here at Le Mans in a sports car form. I think it's going to be exciting, and it's such a departure from what we were used to seeing.
Well, continue to take us through the Corvette track map, mate.
Well, here we get out of the pits. We go through the Dunlop curves. You need to have good car placement all through here with these guys, to carry the speed. Tete Rouge onto the Mousselon straightaway. Very, very high speed down at the end of that. Very tight right-hander, Mousselon. Working down towards Indianapolis. Again, very fast part of the track. as you work through Indianapolis, and then Arnage, very tight right-hander all the way down to first gear, some cars second gear, and then the flowing Porsche curves heading down into the Ford chicane. This is a fun track to drive, 8.46 miles. Unbelievable how long this track is, and just a picturesque place to drive around.
Here's the race analysis, and again highlighting just 4 classes, no more GT1. GT is now split into 2 classes of prototypes. It's very straightforward now.
Yeah, it really is, and I think strategy is going to be a key part of this. As Scott talked about earlier, how many stops do you make? How many tires do you take? You're not allowed to put the tires on when the refueling is done, so Le Mans rules are a little bit different, and the teams have got to be really on top of that.
As we told you, Tom Christensen going for his 9th win. That is an appropriate number for Audi. They've had 9 victories in 12 years from when they first turned up in 1999. It was embarrassing, and that's their word, not ours, for Peugeot last year with the engine failures for 3 out of the 4 cars. They are here not to see that happen again with their new 908. We have got an ocean of information to share with you over the next 24 hours. There's some really exciting times. Jean Todt to wave the tricolour. This is a very special event for him. Remember, he guided Peugeot to victory here in the early 1990s. So this event, we normally associate Jean Todt with Formula One, but the now president of the FIA, this event is right close to his heart.
Now you see the drivers, Scotty, you see them weaving, warming up these tires. This is the coolest the tires are that they probably had all weekend long. They come from ovens when they put the tires on the car and they leave pit lane. Right now they have to be very careful through those first few turns.
They have to be very careful. Remember, the size of the front tires are now the same size as the back. And you were talking about Jean Todt. When we won the Rolex 24 this year, he actually got on the podium with us. It was an incredible event to participate with him in.
It's funny that you brought up the tire ovens, because tire warmers are illegal at Le Mans, but you can put them in an oven.
Ready to go for Le Mans. The tricolour is out. Audi owns the front row, but what does Peugeot have to say about it? Le Mans 2011, and look at Alan McNish on the inside. We know how determined Alan is to get off to a good start. The Peugeot boys are battling.
Watch for them to scramble through this first chicane. There's been problems here in the past. They try and funnel into one line.
Look at the Peugeot guys defending. They're really just trying to own that part of the racetrack.
Benoit Trelier, the pole man, he gets out and sets the pace. McNish was searching on the inside. All of the P2 cars look good.
Look at this. The Audis have been really quick all weekend long through this first segment. And when you get through Tête Rouge onto the Mulsanne straightaway, that's where the Peugeot seems to have a little bit more straightaway speed.
Timo Bernard tucks into second, follows. McNish has got by the Peugeot, so he moves up to 4th.
Now onto the long straight, though. We'll see where the top end plays out.
At 215 miles an hour, the fastest prototypes, those being the Peugeots in qualifying. There we see Dr. Ulrich from Audi Sport looking on.
Frank Montagny is the lead Peugeot. And there he is, Olivier Canel, the boss of the Peugeot Sport program.
See a car weaving around there. I think he's just trying to clean up those tires. You get a lot of pickup when the tires are going around at slow speeds. They'll pick up the little marbles that are laying around the racetrack.
A couple cars in the middle, Calvin, that were doing that. Just look like 2 team cars almost.
Massive battle between the diesel and petrol-powered cars. It's almost like 2 divisions within the LMP1 category. Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich. So we've seen both heads of the Peugeot and Audi programs, and there is the final Peugeot again, just weaving subtly side to side.
And all these drivers have to be a bit careful, as Calvin was talking earlier. You can see that cars, tires are getting up to temp. They're working through that. Even some degree of good fight right here, side by side.
Got a little bit loose getting off that chicane. McNish pounces. He goes to the outside.
We should say it's very cool in Le Mans today. It's not very warm yet. High today, maybe 70 degrees, but it's not there yet.
Montagny does not want the 3 Audis in the top 3 positions, so the car number 8 stays there. We ride on board with Alan McNish.
Look at the perspective of these Audi drivers. The cockpit has been dropped about 3 inches, and they've got those really big front wheels this year. Means big high fenders, very difficult to see through the corners, and really hard to feel the traffic around you.
Sebastian Bourdais is in that red mirrored Peugeot, the next one in line.
He's taking a good hard look as well at the Audi. And don't forget, this could be a challenge for Audi and its drivers. This is the first time that they've come to this race in these closed cockpit cars, and it's a big difference from an open cockpit to closed.
Tell you what's another big difference. The end of the first lap last year, those Peugeots were about 3 or 4 seconds down the road. We've got a battle on our hands here today.
Now these cars are trimmed out to run at Le Mans. They don't run a lot of downforce. They try to get them very aerodynamically clean. This is the first time these cars have run as a pack together. They're each feeling out what they have underneath them right now.
The Audi guys said, we don't know what Peugeot's doing. Are they playing with us in the lead-up races, in the qualifying, in the practice? And they said, but they don't know what we're doing with them either. Well, now we know. Everyone's showing their hand, and we're seeing all the ingredients for an amazing 24-hour race.
This is the Porsche curves. Any prototype driver will tell you, oh, look at that. The Peugeot drops a wheel a little bit, kicks some dust up. This is where you get a read for the aerodynamic efficiency of the car. If you can get through there good, you've got a good race car underneath you.
And that's just the end of a lap.
Benoit Trelier, the pole man, leads the fastest lap.
8.5 miles.
Just like that.
Quick look there at Hugh de Charnac. He's running their 4th Peugeot and diesel-powered car entered in this race. They won at Sebring in a surprise. Can they surprise again here? It was tears of disbelief last year when all 4 Peugeots dropped out.
And you may have seen earlier in the race that de Charnac's car there, the Team Orica entry, and now makes an inside move on Jeroen Bleekemolen. This is Nicolas Lapierre gets through in the 10 machine.
Into the straightaway there, de Charnac's car was actually blowing some black smoke out of the tailpipe, and that's something that they don't like seeing necessarily.
I think Lapierre was one of those drivers that was really trying to get those tires up to temperature. He's weaving around dramatically on the opening lap.
Lead car. Now let's switch back to GTE Pro, our lead GT category for the most modern GT cars, and multi-time winner Ollie Beretta.
It's a great shot. Whoa! Nice move. Right at the inside of the BMW. Under the Dunlop Bridge.
That's what the fans love, that big V8 hammering down the straightaways through the corners around here. They love the sound. So do I.
This is such a great shot on board as you work our way on the Mulsanne straightaway. Flat out right here, shifting up through the gears. It's so much fun to be doing this in a dry. When I drove for Corvette, it rained probably 23 hours. We won that race, but it was rain-soaked.
I remember a great quote from Johnny O'Connell that year. He said, I wanted to lift on the straightaways in the rain. Then he said, they don't pay me to lift. You got to stay in it.
And in this class, we're going to see a tremendous battle between the BMWs, the Corvettes, the Ferraris. And Jimmy Bruni has got off to a nice start in that AF Corsa Ferrari.
See the Corvette there, struggling a little bit of entry to that first chicane, got a little bit wide. I think that's where the BMWs are really strong. Spoke to Joey Hand last night. He said, we're really able to float speed through those corners, and that relates to your straightaway speed, how you get off those chicanes.
Yeah, look, Golly just got in there a little bit too much speed on and knew it, so he just didn't turn where he needed to because he couldn't have made it from there.
We saw Olivier get by one BMW. There's another one up ahead. Is that Augusto Farfus, the speed man from qualifying? Where is Jimmy Bruni?
Remember that BMW he passed earlier in the lap was Andy Prio, had that massive shunt the other night. In the warm-up this morning, they said the car was the best it's been all week long.
You know, what's interesting is this really is an uneventful start. I mean, compared to last year where guys were beating and banging on each other, I think they've learned a lot from last year. You got to make it 24.
So the pole man in the number 2 Audi, Benoit Trelier, is off to a nice, clean start. They've settled into a rhythm. We'll be back. Coming up on June 24th here on Speed, and it's live at 5 p.m. Eastern. It is Barrett-Jackson, Orange County. California becomes home to the greatest collector car auction in the world. You know it well, and it can only be seen here on Speed. Barrett-Jackson, Orange County, and that's Friday, June 24th. Welcome back to the 24 hours of Le Mans. And a nice rhythmic start up front for Audi and Peugeot to take a look, to see what each other's got, just to get up to speed, so to speak, Dorse.
Well, you know, I think after qualifying, all these guys saw for the first time how this race is going to play out. And they're playing it really smart right now. I mean, all these cars have shown the speed to be able to win. Now they have to get through 24 hours.
It's the first time we've seen Audi turn up at Lasarth with a closed cockpit car since 1999, where they went with a split strategy there in their first appearance here. They had 2 open top prototypes, 2 closed cockpit prototypes. So it's something new. And one of the Aston Martins, the AMR1, has spun. This is the 007 of Darren Turner.
He's in the gravel, probably stuck. These guys are going to try to push him out.
These guys have been struggling all weekend.
No.
That's the other car.
That's another car.
Both of them. It's not a good start for Aston Martin, that's for sure.
It's been a tough year, Scott. They came into this race saying to everyone in terms of their press releases, but that's a spin there in the first chicane by Darren Turner, and they expected problems with their engines throughout the course of this 24-hour race. They went with some new plasma lining technology, decided that didn't work. It was literally peeling the linings off the cylinders at the early season races. Haven't got a lot of seat time with this car, but certainly from Darren's perspective there, looked like a quick spin in one of the chicanes, and he's stuck in the gravel as the other one sits on the side of the road.
I didn't think those guys would be able to push him out. They usually bury themselves pretty good in those gravel trails.
This is what's going to be interesting to see. You see the Audis out front right now, which, I mean, they're setting the pace without question. Now when they get into traffic, as Calvin, you were talking about earlier, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle traffic with their limited visibility in that car.
It really is, and the Peugeot drivers have spoken about that. Remember, the Peugeot, this 908, is really an evolution of the previous 908, which again was closed cockpit, and those drivers have been used to that since 2007, the guys that have been on their squad since then. So they're used in race conditions to driving the car around traffic. When we looked at that car close up, the new R18 the other day with Ralph Hutton, who's the technical director, it's amazing how short and narrow the band of windshield that the drivers have to look through. It's almost like laying down in your bathtub and sort of like squatting way back down and having the sides of the tub up above you with those wheel fenders with those massive front tires.
And when we were going through that technical walkthrough with Ralph Hutton, Brian and I snuck around the other side. There is Ralph Hutton. Snuck around the other side. We've got our notebook, just standard 8.5 by 11, and that filled from top to bottom of that windshield. It is narrow.
Looking at the windshield of this car, you see to the left right there, that's the fender. And this is where our camera's mounted, is at the top. Somebody going off here.
That's the Farnbacher Ferrari with American Lee Keane in it, Alan Simonson and Dominic Farnbacher. That's going to be one of the contenders in GTE Pro.
Our camera is mounted on that way up inside, higher than the driver's head. So you can imagine sitting down in there, you can't see left or right at all.
Jamie?
In talking about the Audi and the visibility issues that they have, one advantage that they think that they could have is because they've never raced at Le Mans in the closed cockpit car, and they do have those larger front tires. They have nothing else to compare it to, whereas Peugeot, they do have the experience with the closed cockpit, but now it's from a whole different vantage point with those larger front wheels. They think that that might help them over the long run.
I think they might be confused. I mean, when you're going through an iteration of a car and going from one generation to the next, that's one thing. But when you're starting with a clean sheet of paper, I think that in itself is just kind of an excuse, in my opinion.
Jimmy Bruni now set sail at the front of the GTE Pro class. No GT2 or GT as we had last year. It's now called GTE in 2 divisions. Pro division essentially made up with the factory drivers and really strong driver lineups throughout the field. Then an amateur division where you have to have only one pro guy in amongst your 3 driver lineup. So it's really going to be fascinating to see how that plays out this year.
This is in the top 3. Bruni's got a handy margin over the lead Corvette with Augusto Farfus in the 55 BMW M3. We just need a Porsche up there, but the Porsche guys have not been on the pace this weekend, and they feel that reliability will be their key. Augusto Farfus looks at Beretta, puts the pressure on.
They got some straightaway speed in that BMW. To pull out and pass and go up next to him like that, that's pretty impressive. And you can look at the size difference. When there's 2 cars side by side, the Corvette and the BMW, it's pretty significant.
They were 13 kilometers an hour off the pace, they being BMW last year in straight line speed. To Justin Bell. Justin, what do you got?
Well, you know what it's like in racing. The other team always thinks the other is sandbagging, and we hear that a lot between Corvette and BMW. Just looking at those cars side by side right now on the huge monitor, all weekend we haven't seen the Corvette as close in parallel on top speed to the BMW at all. So I think the BMW boys, when they raised an eyebrow to me yesterday and went, well, you know, we never know what Doug Feehan's squad have got in hand. Well, I think we're just starting to see it.
I think what you could see on the monitor, Justin, is the fact that BMW has a much bigger greenhouse. The shadow of the car is much taller than the Corvette, and that was the problem last year. As they punch a bigger hole, you get to that terminal speed at the end of these long straightaways, suddenly that can be a factor aerodynamically.
And you saw it right there, Calvin. The BMW had the pull on the Corvette, and he popped out to make the pass and stalled. He couldn't get it done.
Ollie Gavin in the 74 fighting for that second place in GT, just like Alan McNish is fighting here with the number 8 Peugeot of Frank Montagny.
And what a great fight this is. I mean, he's looking all over him. You can see that the Audi seems to have a bit more speed through the curves, but the Peugeot has a little bit of run on the straightaway.
That's exactly what Tom Christensen told us yesterday. He said we seem better through some of the fast stuff and under braking, but certainly the Peugeot was trimmed out a little bit. Now, will that trimmed out effect in terms of they've not got as much drag, Scott? Maybe that will play into that fuel economy. How many laps can they get? Audi have told us it will be 11 laps. 12 will be a real struggle. If Peugeot can go one more lap each stint, that will certainly be a factor over 24 hours.
That's massive, and that's we were talking about earlier on in the show. When you got cars running this close, you got to pay attention to the strategy and those other little pieces that can make the difference.
I always like being fastest on the straightaway, though.
Massive downforce and fast down the straightaway.
Very good fight here.
Right?
That's good for me.
A little bit of an Audi sandwich between the two Peugeots.
Bourdais is that next Peugeot in line. Behind him, it's Alex Verts, who has a remarkable record here, a 2-time winner from very limited appearances. And then the number 10, the older Peugeot 908 for Orica is still there. It's ahead of the best petrol-powered car. So when we see those cars, we'll update you on those positions. Jamie?
One thing that we saw last year when it came to the pit stops was that it's very, very tight in pit lane. So during the recon laps just before the race, the number 3 Audi actually came in twice. They did their first recon lap, pits were still open, so they came back in, got another splash of fuel. So for the first round of pit stops, they don't have to come in when everyone else comes in. They're going to have a little bit more room in pit lane and a little bit more room to get the work done efficiently.
Typically what Audi do, Jamie, is they actually stagger their pit stops. They don't want to bring 2 or the 3 cars in together, and I think that top up of fuel may mean that the 3 car will be the last of their cars to pit. With the formation lap, we're looking at 11 on a normal green flag run. Probably be 10 laps max with the formation lap added into this opening stint, so you may see one of the Audis pit as early as lap 8.
You may have noticed a car off to the side of the track. That's the 007 AMR1, the Aston Martin with Darren Turner behind the wheel. There's something wrong with the rear left there. We saw Darren spin in the first chicane. The other Aston Martin went off as well. That was Adrian Fernandez, but we haven't yet seen any more sightings of him, and Darren limping that car on home.
If it was the left rear go down, that would explain the spin as he was turning right into that first chicane.
Pedro Lamy, Dindo Capello, all anxiously looking. What have we got? Where are we placed? How do we look in these opening laps? It gives us a little bit of a window into the future. Up front, Trellier's got a 3-second lead over Timo Bernard. Alan McNish looking to the inside. Montagny does not want to relinquish his position.
How about this 24-hour race? And they're battling it out with just 18 minutes on the board.
He's going to be taking a good hard look here.
Notice Alan.
McNish is all over him.
Yeah, Alan really using a lot of curbs through the chicane back there.
Well, Alan also knows he's got somebody right up behind him.
Yes, he does.
I think what we're seeing here is the Audi, once again into a rhythm, as you see the cars out front, the number 2 and the number 1, they're running faster lap times. McNish probably has the same speed, but he's really caught in that quandary. He's got cornering speed, but can't make it down the straightaways, a pass on the Peugeot.
This is the kind of stuff I hate right there. I mean, as a driver, oh, he's veering to the right. Oh, now he's veering to the left. Oh, now he's back in front of you. I hate that kind of blocking.
Guess what? McNish has got a very low tolerance for it as well. You can imagine what the wee Scotsman is saying inside the cockpit of the R18. This is the battle for third overall and in LMP1. It is still the Signatech Orica Nissan leading P2. And in GT Pro, Jimmy Bruni is the best for AF Corsa in his Ferrari. We'll tell you about GTE AM when we come back. We'll tell you also where the American teams are placed. See you in a moment. This July, baseball's biggest stars will gather together in Arizona for one spectacular night in the summer's biggest event on Fox. We bring you a thrilling moment of the 2011 MLB All-Star Game. Coverage begins Tuesday, July 11th, live from Phoenix at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, only on Fox. And the applause from the Audi camp as McNish has got by the number 8 Peugeot 908 of Frank Montagny. So the Peugeot staff look on with much interest, and that was just good perseverance from Alan.
Yeah, it really was. You have to be patient. You can't afford to throw it all away just because you want to get to the front of the pack. But look at this GT battle. It continues to rage with Farfus still chasing on Ollie Gavin there for the second spot.
Let's check in on pit road. Here's Justin Bell.
Yeah, the 007 Aston we saw out there in the gravel trap, which you guys called, has made its way back into the pit lane. Now, a little bit of conflicting reports. They took the rear engine cover off, which I didn't quite understand other than looking to clear out the gravel. But now it does appear they have an alternator issue on this car. So it's going up in the air. I mean, I know Scott's experience at so have I. It's not fun driving a car full of gravel, so they'll be trying to make the most of clearing that out of the brakes and everything. But it's an alternator issue that could be more severe than it looks. So Darren Turner pretty disgusted when he got out. What do you got, Jamie?
Well, one of the American teams seems to be missing from the GT battle. That is Flying Lizard Motorsports. They've already been on pit road with a cut tire, so they did have to do 4 new tires and fuel. It's been a long week for the Flying Lizard team, as Patrick Long said at the beginning of the show, but they're in the fight. They're ready to go out and get him. They're hoping that their luck turns around now.
That's one thing with these Le Mans gravel traps. It's not like a pea gravel that's round. It has a real sharp edge to it. So if a car goes off the road and showers the racetrack with that gravel, it is really easy to cut down one of these tires.
Of course, the consequences of a cut down tire on an 8.5-mile lap can be catastrophic if you get it at the wrong place.
You're talking about the difference between the Peugeots and the Audis with downforce and then trying to get down a straightaway. And it really comes into play right now. You're talking about carrying a little bit more speed through the turns. You see the Audi really being able to cut his way through traffic a lot more aggressively than the Peugeot. The other thing I notice is the fact that everybody seems like they're taking a breath before they pass. Last year, there was a lot of bumping, a lot of hitting, a lot of accidents going on in the first few hours. Here, you just feel like these guys are taking a little breath before they make their move.
I think this limited visibility is playing into that, Scott, to some degree. These guys don't have a lot of time behind the wheel of these cars. I don't think that their confidence level is where it should be yet.
You see those very special LED headlights on the Audi R18 being flashed furiously to let the GT traffic, both the Pro and AM classes, know that the overall lead car is coming through, and those who are chasing him, it's an Audi 1, 2, 3 if you've just turned on. Benoit Trellier leads Timo Bernard and Alan McNish, first, second, and third. It's an Audi 1, 2, 3. This is what the 4 rings were looking for in their return to Le Sarthe with a closed cockpit car to try and do what they did last year, and that was a clean sweep of the Le Mans podium.
What's amazing for those of you who have not been to the racetrack and watched one of these diesel-powered cars run is how silent they are. You can almost hear the tire chirp there as they turn into Tete Rouge. It's quite amazing that the tire noise will sometimes overpower the engine noise of these new technology cars.
Greg?
Got an accent.
Well, just a little bit further information on that visibility issue. Chatting with a couple of the Audi drivers, they said obviously, you know, turn in, that sort of thing, sighting apexes on the tight corners presents challenges. But one of their big concerns was knowing when they're clear of a car they're overtaking. And Dorsey, you talked about the visibility, maybe making them a bit more cautious. And Scott, you alluded to that as well. That might be part of it. You can run up on somebody, but now it's even more difficult than before to make sure you're clear of them before you swing back to the line. line, or you turn into the corner if you've gone around the outside. I think you may be absolutely right on the caution issue.
Yeah, you know, I think that in the future, sooner or later, if this becomes more of a problem, they'll probably have to go to those side scan cameras, those little cameras they can put out there and have a monitor inside. Look at this. Talk about threading the needle up the middle of the straightaway. No! Coming through.
And that's difficult. You're right on the crown of the road there, Scott, and you got to be so careful. The car will want to wander on you a little bit.
You got to be incredibly careful doing something like that and making their moves. Now, when you look at the Peugeots here, again, it's going to be interesting to see where they come in for their fuel stops. It looks like they're pacing themselves. They certainly don't seem to have the speed through traffic that the Audis do. It'd be interesting to see if they can extend their runs, maybe in lap, perhaps.
Just clearing the GT leaders right there. Then you see McNish right amongst those. He's catching these two front runners right now. So McNish looks like he's got the pace. He wants to join the battle at the front.
It's a top 3 in GTE Pro that they are weaving through right there, popping into
a lot of question marks about that new Ferrari 458. They had electrical gremlins at Sebring. The Risi car quit with a couple of hours to go with alternator issues. They've designed a new alternator for Michelotto. They believe they're on top of that, but still, the other teams are counting on that Ferrari may be having troubles over 24 hours. I spoke to the AF Corsa team this week. They said, yes, we have done no simulations over that longer run. We are concerned, but we have a fast race car.
You know, these alternators on an endurance race have got to be extreme. They have to put out a lot of power. These cars need 13 plus volts to operate all the electrics that are on there, and then you add to that the headlights and all the things you run in endurance. So these alternators are really high output alternators.
It's also going to be interesting because now they're lapping the leaders of the GT class about every half hour.
Look at that. There you see one of those P1 cars whistle around the outside. That's just massive downforce overpowering the GTE cars through that section of the corner.
Of course, that's where we saw the Corvette get clipped last year and crash so heavily too.
Anthony Davidson was just so aggressive. He was driving like he had a stuck throttle. Yeah. Just hanging on to the moves he was making.
Well, we've ridden on board plenty with the 74 Corvette. We know that Ollie Gavin is in a really nice spot at the moment, sitting second in the GTE Pro class. Let's go to the Corvette garage now with Jamie.
Well, guys, one thing that the ACO has helped really advance and make it a lot easier for these teams is in spotting around the track. Last year, each team only received 3 different camera angles from around the entire circuit. This year, they're getting 7. So look at Corvette Racing and what they've done. They have a monitor for each of the 7 different locations around the circuit. And then if you look down here, there's a number. This is so that the team knows what their lap time should be by the time they get to this particular position on the track. And it really just helps them communicate with the driver what sort of traffic they're in, because at least for Corvette Racing, they do not have any spotters around the circuit. So this is the way that they communicate with what's around each driver.
And that's true. When I drove for Corvette back in 2001, it was a lot different then, and it's exciting to see how you continually move forward and see, you know, how these cars do and how they go, and then for the team seeing it right there on camera in front of them, because it's big. We have that opportunity at Daytona when we do the 24. We have a spotter, and that certainly helps an awful lot.
Promised when we went to that last break, I'd update you on the other classes and the American teams. For the 33 level 5 team, that's Scott Tucker's team of Christophe Bouchou and Joao Barbosa. They are in the top 10 in class, but a little further down. They are currently running 8th in their Lola HPD powered machine. We'll talk more about the GT classes as well when we come back. No changes, still that Signatech Nissan leading P2. And it is the car to beat. The pole-sitting car and driver continue to dominate this race. It's Benoit Trellier in the number 2 Audi. But what do you think? If you go to speed.com, you can cast your vote. Who do you think will win this year's 24 Hours of Le Mans? Will it be Audi, Peugeot, or a surprise winner? And I guess in that surprise categories, we've got a car running slow there. Is that the Hope Hybrid? No, it's not.
No. That's the pole sitter, yeah. LMP2.
Frank Malieu. Left rear.
Yeah, definitely left rear now.
The key is to go slow enough that you just don't disintegrate that tire and cause some bodywork damage. So great job by that driver.
Pit stops occurred while we were in the break. You heard Calvin mention earlier about Audi traditionally stagger their stops. Well, the 1 and the 3 came in early at the end of the 8th lap.
Yeah, and I think the reason being is to create that gap between the cars. So if the 3 car got serviced a little bit quicker, it'd have space to get out of there. What they changed there is the memory card. The ACO downloads all of the data from the car every time they do it, every hour or so. And also a drink bottle change being done. So fuel, no tires. Now we see that 26 car struggling his way into pit lane. Let's go down to Greg Creamer.
Yeah, the stop for the number 1 Audi was completely routine, as you talked about, the 1 and the 3 giving that spot for the number 2, and it was just a routine stop. Did a quick look at things, fueled it up, cleaned the windscreen, and sent him on his way. Jamie, you've got the story on the number 3 Audi.
Yes, it was completely routine for the number 3 car as well. It was just fuel, cleaning off the windscreen, and then back out and underway.
Now we see the first of the Peugeots coming in. And this is significant. They look like they're certainly getting a little bit better mileage, even with the formation lap. 2 of their cars have stayed out. Justin's on the spot.
Yeah, very interesting that, isn't it, Cal? Because I know Audi, especially with Brad at in control of one of them, has been very, very tactical about how you save fuel on those formation laps. But here's the Peugeot staying out, well, a good lap longer. Just a routine stop, obviously. And please, let's discuss with our viewers the fact that these tyres, even though they've got the wider fronts on them, are going to go longer distances than ever before. As the Peugeot pulls out, this will probably be a 3 stinter. By that I mean that the guys are going to stay in the car for 3 fuel stops. They can probably go 4 when it gets a bit later in the race. But remember, the fuel stops are also only probably every 40 minutes as opposed to every 45. So a lot of dynamics have added to the strategy as well as the demands on the driver. So pretty interesting down here.
Dramas for the 22 Kronos Racing Aston Martin. This is the one with Vanina X behind the wheel. And this was a car that was, the majority were hopeful it could be up there towards the end of this 24-hour period, but early dramas, and that is typical at Le Mans.
Yeah, they broke a half shaft the other night, got it fixed quickly, so certainly some issues there. That's one of the cars that's really been grandfathered in with the new prototype rules. That's one of last year's cars, which is heavily restricted, but still allowed to run. But significant here, the 2 lead Peugeots, the 9 and the 7, they're going to do 11 laps on this stint, plus the formation laps. So will they be able to do 12 green flag laps? That will be significant over 24 hours.
And it's also interesting to note that they're making pit stops at the 33-minute to about the 40-minute mark. You're talking about the how they changed the rules somewhat. The fuel cells are smaller, so that means those stints are happening quite often. So I think there's potential for them to actually do a 4th stint with the smaller fuel loads in these cars.
Yeah, that's right. And what they try and do is really match the driver change to when they're changing tires, because it gives them a little bit longer, particularly with the closed cockpit cars. That's one of the reasons that Audi wanted to stay with the open cockpit. With the rules way back then, like 5-6 years ago, you had 2 wheel guns on pit lane. They changed the rules over the last couple of years. You're only allowed 1 wheel gun during the tire changes. That has really lengthened that pit stop procedure. So Audi now feel that having a closed cockpit car, the driver change will not be a contributing factor to the length of time on pit road.
And of course, the other reason for the closed cockpit is because the reduced engine size doesn't put out the horsepower. They're down some 150, 60 horsepower from what they were running. And with the open cockpit, there's so much drag that it just couldn't pull it with the smaller engine. They had to go to the coupe.
And again, I think that gives Peugeot the advantage. They're used to making driver changes in a closed cockpit car.
Straka Racing HPD is in. We showed you what the story was with this British team a little earlier, the defending class champions as well here at Le Mans. It was far from incident-free, but they've been able to fix the car. They've done a nice job. And again, the 42 Straka HPD will be a contender.
Yeah, they had a flawless run here last year. Everyone thought it was going to be a battle royale between them and the Highcroft Racing team, but they just had one of those runs during the 24-hour races that you just shake your head in disbelief. Nothing went wrong. They were flawless and very, very strong.
The 3 GT leaders right there running nose to tail. Just past us.
Greg standing by at Straka.
as that car pulls out, yes, they have had a very fraught event here. Nick Levenis had a huge shunt on Wednesday, and basically they said every corner was damaged on the car. It was an amazing rebuild. They got it back out and were immediately quick. Peugeots are in. Justin's there.
Yeah, very unusual. They actually opened both drivers' doors on both cars when they're coming in. They got a loose one on the 9 by the look of it. They cannot latch the catch. You don't want that at high speed, obviously down the straight. It only has an effect when you brake. Very interesting. We just missed it on camera. As the 7 pulls away, so smooth as they pull away.
And remember,
no wheel spin here at Le Mans. That's what they work a lot with. The front windscreens were very, very dirty, even just after the first 30 minutes of running. So imagine that visibility restriction plus a kind of crappy sort of front windscreen. It's going to be very, very difficult to see through as the light deteriorates later. You know what that's like there, don't you, boys?
What was going on there just now, I believe, is they were taking the data card out. That's an extra person you're allowed on pit road, and when he took the data card out and shut the door wouldn't close, but the rules will not allow you to make a fix and work on the car whilst the refueling is going on.
Then again, a side-to-side incident right there on pit lane as 2 cars try to pull out. That's that visibility issue that's going to we'll see that all through the next 24 hours.
It's going to be interesting to see how they shake out now the pit stops have gone through their first round between the Audis and the Peugeots, the separation in lap time and speed.
You got to assume these first stop, at least for the Audi boys, was exploratory by nature. They came in early just to have a look-see and break up their strategy a bit.
You happen to see who that was? 7-time World Rally Champion there, Sebastian Loeb, who we would dearly love to see in one of these Peugeot 908s. He has raced here before and did a very, very nice job when he has. So don't discount seeing the French star in the future here at Le Sarthe once again in a perhaps a closed-top prototype this time around. Well, 64 is in.
He's on. Corvette pulls into the pit lane. They're doing fuel. They're cleaning up the windshield. They're taking their time right now. They're not under a stress situation, but it does seem a little bit early, and that's all calculated. Corvette does their fuel simulations during the course of the week, but you can't ever really test without proper race conditions. So they come in before they know they're actually going to be out of fuel just to make sure that their calculations were correct. Fill them up, he's out and underway.
A quick adjustment there on the right side of the car. Someone went in there with like an Allen wrench and a brace just to change some setting. Be curious to know exactly what that is. There's so many quick sort of fixes they can do and sort of like just work with the race car during these pit stops, but time on pit lane is critical in Corvette racing. When we see them do one of their tire changes, boy, are they prolific. About 20 seconds is their norm, and I know BMW Motorsport, which pitted right beside those guys, just shook their heads in disbelief. They're doing them in about 25, and they said, wow, that is unbelievable to watch those guys work.
Great shot right there. You saw the left front tire just brush. It wasn't locked up. It was just brushing, just trying to lock up. It was perfect braking. And a little bit of understeer as he was having trouble getting that thing shut down.
1, 2, and 3 are cars. 1, 2, and 3. Timo Bernard, Benoit Trellier, Alan McNish. The Audis run line astern at the front. Best of the Peugeots is Frank Montagny in the 8, and then Verton Bourdais. So they've all gone through their first cycles of stops.
And as we're seeing right now, it looks like the Peugeots are about, what would you say, about 12 seconds back to third place McNish as we speak right now.
You know how Sam Posey opened up and talked about the oil streak cars. You see those crew guys? Wait till you see them tomorrow. Talking about oil streak.
And you'll see that margin in a moment. You'll see exactly where Peugeot are in comparison.
See on the in and out lap, certainly Timo Bernard did a great job to leapfrog around his teammate Trellier. So it's the number 1, the defending champions here. Timo Bernard, Romain Dumas, Mike Rockenfeller, his teammates who lead this event. The number 2 has dropped to second, and McNish is all over him.
Well, you see right now what it's going to be like tonight. All these GT cars having a good go of it themselves. And look at the prototypes having a difficult time trying to get around it.
And as Calvin mentioned earlier, that could be a challenge with some of these tires. We saw that tire going down earlier. And when you look at these pebbles and this rock and these sand traps, they are sharp and they do cut.
We haven't spoken about GTM. It is still the AF Corsa car that leads the way over the Labra competition. Porsche, they're splitting their run this year with for Labra, one Porsche, one Corvette. And in third is the Golf Aston Martin Racing machine. So there's your top four. There is one of the leading Porsches in GT Pro. That is the 77 Felbermeyer car, the defending class champion, or was in certainly GT2. We'll see what they can do, but Mark Lieb said we don't have it on outright speed this year. It's going to be reliability that will get us there.
And just to go back over the GTE Pro and AM divisions, essentially the Pro division is all pro drivers. The amateur division, you're only allowed to have one pro in your car, and also the cars to be at least 12 months old, so the older technology. So the Ferraris in the Pro in the amateur division will be the 430, and we'll see the 458, for example, in the Pro division.
Corvette working their way in for their stop, and the BMW still going out there going for another lap.
Jimmy Bruni, Augusto Farfus, 1 and 2 in GTE Pro. Jamie, what do you have?
Well, the number 74 Corvette is now in pit lane. The same thing that went on with the 73 car. However, they are not doing that adjustment. They did a rear sway bar adjustment on the 73 car. The 74 car, happy with the setup. Didn't change a thing, just fuel, cleaned off the headlights, and cleaned off the windshield.
It's interesting, a rear sway bar adjustment first. And that's what it's a quick.
That's pretty cool.
Thinking about that. You know, he goes in there with an Allen wrench and he goes ahead and switches that sway bar. Probably, I'm guessing, loosened up the rear sway bar, eliminating some of the oversteer or power down.
We talk about no work being done on the cars during refueling. There are certain things tire and brake technicians are allowed over the line, as we see at Le Mans, not the wall. There's no pit wall per se for the mechanics to have to get over. And also they're allowed to change the data card on the car, and they're also allowed to clean the windshield. They don't want, back in the open cockpit days versus closed cockpit days of the prototypes, for one car to have an advantage over the other. So that work is allowed to be done during the refueling process.
Great battle going on here, Porsche versus Ferrari. That's the JMW Ferrari. We'll tell you about that lineup there. That's an impressive one. Rob Bell, Tim Sugden, and they brought in Xavier Masson at the last moment. This is leading in GT Pro, though. It's Jimmy Bruni over Augusto Farfus. Ferrari versus BMW. Sounds good, doesn't it? We can just get a Porsche and a Corvette, which we've had with Ollie Gavin up there. It's game on.
To win Le Mans, you have to do the equivalent of an entire Formula One season in one day. It means nothing can be left to chance.
It's a tremendously difficult job. It requires clear, precise decision-making. We have over 100 people working to ensure the three Audis are perfectly prepared. We have to have total trust across the whole Audi team, or we will not win.
Now think of it from my position.
I come into the pits, brake hard, pit stop. They change the wheels. The guy in the left front gets a wheel off, new wheel on, nut on, wheel gun, and within less than a minute, I'm on my way doing over 200 miles per hour.
I have to trust he's done his job perfectly.
My life is in his hands. When I'm driving the car, he's doing the equivalent of a gentle jog on the pedals. My heart rate is an average of about 140 beats per minute. When I come into the first chicane and brake hard, I press that brake pedal with about 80 kilos of force. When I'm steering through the corners, it's about 4 kilograms in each hand.
At the same time, I'm going through 3G of lateral force.
That means I've got to hold my breath
to stop my lungs getting crushed to the side of my ribcage. Your head, with your helmet on, is about 8 kilos. Now multiply that by 3G, that's 24 kilos. Now try this at home. Lie off the edge of your bed, get a laptop, it's about 2 kilograms, and then just sit and do this for a couple of minutes. Not the 3.5 hours we're in the car.
3.5 hours of intensity, 3.5 of concentration, over a 3.5 minute lap, with 50 other cars trying to beat the three Audis. Le Mans is a 24-hour race.
It's all day, all night. It's aquaplaning down the straights or in beautiful 35 degrees of sunshine. You never stop until the checkered flag comes down at 3 o'clock on Sunday afternoon.
One race, one day, one season, one winner.
Speed's coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans is brought to you by Just for Men Hair Color. Live forward.
Back at Le Mans, and GT pit stops occurring here, and this is the 61 AF Corsa machine that has been doing very well in the GT AM division. It's been leading right from the outset. It's the Jota Aston Martin, serviced and sent. No major dramas there.
Very cool conditions over there this whole week. Expect ambient temperatures around 70 degrees here for the race. Very cool tonight forecast. Oh, another problem for the 22 car. Looks like the left rear wheel is either missing.
Looks like it's missing.
Yeah.
Vanina X is driving the car right now. And it's a combination of the Kronos. Oh, that's McNish. That's Alan McNish.
That's a massive chunk there. Traffic.
Oh boy, that was that. No. He went for a hole there, boys, that was not there. Look at the spectators.
Boy, the camera guys lucky.
God,
look at that
Alan's
wheel
okay.
flying. That is a scary scene.
Wow.
And the drivers, the prototype drivers, spoke about this. They said we will need to take unnecessary risks to clear GT traffic. This is frightening stuff. Alan McNish is still in the car.
On first glance, guys, I don't think the gap was there. Let's take a look down through the Dunlop curves. He goes inside Bernard. That's for the lead of the race.
It wasn't there. I mean, we're talking about it's really difficult to see out of that car, and it just looks like that's coming into play here.
Cleared that guardrail. We're taking world feed here, so we don't have control of the pictures we're seeing or broadcasting.
Doing about 175 miles an hour there down through the Dunlop curves.
On board.
This is with Timo. See the traffic, and Alan just shoots the gap. Wow.
And this is exactly what we had talked about. We're getting the car righted now. Alan's still in.
That was extremely disturbing. And Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich. And that is a
goodness.
Boy,
my goodness, that is awesome.
That's great to see right there.
That was a massive shunt, and the relief at Audi, relief that Alan is okay.
See the emotion there on Dr. Ulrich, and his eyes almost brought to tears.
Amazing, walking away, just wow. Big shunt.
GT traffic early in the race. You got to say this is just being too aggressive, guys.
Yeah, I totally agree. That wasn't necessary place.
I think it's being awful aggressive, and I think they just can't see out of the car as well.
Next concern is for those fans. In a moment, you're going to see that wheel come down. Look at that. How close that was to the photographer there. Whew.
And that combination of pictures was poorly put together. Ulrich was, of course, applauding when Alan stepped from the car. That would be the scariest moment of Alan McNish's illustrious career.
Talk about the integrity of these race cars, and you got to think the close cockpit there helped him. It's a one-piece monocoque, and just relief for everyone there. That is a really big team. Alan's been with them for so long, and they're disappointed that that car is out, but the number one priority is that their driver is okay.
Makes me sick just looking at it. I mean, being in those kind of situations and having those big shunts, wow, it's just horrific. Good to see that Alan got out of the car and was able to walk away under his own his own powers, for sure. BMW guys in for a pit.
Kind of hard to talk about anything else after that, isn't it? I think you phrased it correctly, Scott. That was sickening. Just gut-wrenching scenes with
so fortunate it fell back onto the racetrack side of that guardrail, not back to where the photographer side was.
This is the luxury racing Ferrari that was involved. The 58 machine that Alan McNish was attempting to overtake. And right on his left rear, he did not clear Anthony Beltoise.
We understand that the 58 car just made a pit stop, so he's probably gone at a lower pace than normal. But even so, you just can't afford down through that section of the racetrack to go for a gap. You've got to believe the GT car is going to come back to the apex. And that gap that was there is over in a split second.
Such a high-speed area, and you know, this early in the race to take a chance, unnecessary chance.
Timo Bernhard had a great look at that as Alan flashed by him. I think Timo checked up, and then Alan went for the gap. Justin?
You know, I'm watching on the massive monitor here, and obviously you guys are processing it. Can I throw something in the hat before, you know, I mean, obviously we're laying a little bit at Alan's door here, the responsibility, because he is the faster car. But do you remember the in-car shot from the other Audi that was to the left behind the 58 car? I think the 58 car suddenly saw him in his mirrors, which is a more natural place than out of his sort of blind spot through the side mirror, and I think he pulled over a bit. So that's my take. I think the gap was bigger than it was halfway through the move. Just a thought. Jamie?
Standing by with Dr. Ulrich of Audi Sport. Dr. Ulrich, when you look at this video, how fortunate is Alan, and what do you think happened?
I mean, for sure, he is fortunate. It looks as if he would be fine. On the one hand, it shows how strong the cars are, but we don't want to prove it like that.
When you look at the video, you can see the relief on all of the faces of the team. Do you have any idea what could have happened? Do you know what could have happened?
I mean, what I have seen is that the Ferrari was closing him the door, and he just touched him, and then he was going out in the gravel pit.
Thank you.
Let's show you one more time exactly what happened with Alan McNish and the GT Ferrari.
I don't know that the Ferrari could have seen him coming up the inside because the other car was right behind the Ferrari.
I think the telltale sign is Timo was behind the Ferrari. He decided the gap wasn't there. He backed out of it. He said, no, I'm not going to look at this. And Alan squirted by him. And
exactly. That's exactly what happened. I mean, he decided, Timo decided, you know what, let me just wait. I'll make the move the next turn. And McNish said, you know what, I'm gonna thread this needle here and make this massive move. And unfortunately, did not pay off.
I tell you something that's going to happen in the next 12 months, guys, is they will do heavy revision of that area there for photographers and marshals that were left completely exposed.
Yeah, that was way too close right there.
See Johnny Molan there behind the wheel with his legendary driver style in terms of having his overalls rolled up. I'm sure the organizers and officials of this race think that might not be good in a fire, mate. So, but that's what he likes to do, and we've seen it for many years now in the American Le Mans Series.
I just roll him down.
Yeah, you do that when you catch fire. You just roll them down real fast.
It brings a whole new meaning to rolling your sleeves up for action. But
well, we've seen some monstrous crashes here over the years, and that one will go on the list as well. If you've just joined us, Alan McNish with a very frightening crash, contacting a GT car. The number 3 Audi R18 is demolished. Alan appears to be okay, walking away from the incident. He was assisted by corner workers and marshals and did walk away. I'm sure throughout the course of this broadcast we will catch up with Alan and get his perspective on it. Very frightening scenes, but again, the driver, the 2-time Le Mans winner, appears to be okay. Back at Le Mans, and just unbelievable scenes. The 9-time winner Tom Christensen, the 3-time winner Dindo Capello, the 2-time winner Alan McNish, the most successful driving trio in this race, are out after the first hour. You know, earlier, boys, I was about to say it's been quite a calm, rhythmic start. We've just seen some minor, isolated incidents like with the Aston Martin and various things. There's Dindo Capello. He would have been in as much disbelief as us, seeing those images of his dear friend and teammate, Alan McNish. If you're wondering what we're talking about, this is it. It is breathtaking in a bad way.
Looks to me like just got too aggressive. I mean, Timo, he backed off. McNish, he just takes advantage. Aggressive move up the inside.
The speed he was going, Scott, those other GT cars, I mean, he'd have been right on the tail of those in a heartbeat as well. So you hate to lay the blame at Alan. He's a close friend and one of the best sports car drivers ever. But you'd have to say that was not the right move at that time. I mean, thank goodness. I mean, we're all in shell shock here just looking at these images, and thank goodness that Alan is okay. But Timo backed out of it. That has to be the indicator you didn't want to go there.
It is, and it's unfortunate for the team. And again, that is just, I mean, that's how accidents happen, just in a blink of an eye, and they can happen big and just take you out of all competition. And we're just over 1 hour in.
You know, we were talking about that yesterday too, about Brian Till and I were talking about that these cars, they look so glued to the racetrack and so good until something goes wrong, and then you see that sense of speed and you see the destruction that can be possible with one of these when they get out from under you.
Time to check in with one GT team that has one of our American drivers, Joey Hand, in it. Let's hear from one of Joey's teammates.
Absolutely, standing by with Andy Prio. And interestingly, you guys made a driver change on your first stop. Now, obviously, it happened under caution. You hate to have it for the reason that we saw with Alan's crash, but an opportunity for you guys?
Yeah, we had a bit of a handling issue in that session, and so we needed to change tyres, and that means driver change, to be honest. I'm not expected to do just fuel, but we also changed tyre compounds, so we needed to do driver change. But we're going strong. The car feels okay, and you know, I just hope that everyone's okay. That was an awful accident. I'm pleased to see Alan get out of the car, but I'm extremely worried about the people in the crowd.
Yeah, that obviously it did spray some debris. Did that handling problem, was that left over from your shunt, or is it just totally unrelated?
No, I think, well, we did a different tyre strategy between the two cars. Potentially that's what it is. I'll only be able to answer that question with this stint now with a new, different tyre compound, but I must say our tyres have been really strong. We qualified on pole this weekend, pole and third place on the grid. So it's just trying to find the right tyre for the right conditions.
This race is something like, what, 30 World Touring Car Championship races all thrown together. How are you enjoying it, obviously, in the early going?
Yeah, it's an amazing race. I mean, it's an awesome spectacle and an honour for any driver to be involved in such a prestigious event. And you're right, it's like 30 touring cars. It's like a season of touring car racing in 24 hours. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, well, good luck and have a great race.
Thank you, cheers.
All right, by the way, the team car also did a tire change. Calvin, you were talking about the length of time on that. They had gotten it down to the practice that I was watching. They actually nailed it down to a 23.2 at one point. So that's where we are. And we're down here at the Luxury Racing number 58 Ferrari pit. And the car has been brought in and ducked back into the garage at this point. Damage to that right rear, as you would expect. And you can see they're all over it here. There's a bit of a scrum right now around Anthony Beltois, but I'm hoping maybe we can grab him and just get a word as to his perspective on it. Obviously, covering the BMW stop in Indy has put us at the back of the queue just a little bit, and Eurosport about to hop in right now. So I'll tell you what, at this point, let me see if I can throw it down to Justin for an update, and I'll see if I can grab Andy, and we'll come back.
Well, hi, thanks there, Greg. Now, there's no mistaking that was a horrific accident, and any of us that have been behind the wheel, just it makes your stomach lurch, and you're just waiting for your friend to get out. So, obviously, very pleased that Alan did. But, you know, there's a lot of clever people responsible for him surviving an accident like that maybe 10 years ago. Quite honestly, he wouldn't have. And here at Le Mans, I mean, there's been some pretty tragic fatalities. And let's explain why that is. Sometimes the worst accidents, the worst looking accidents, are not actually the worst ones to be a part of. I know Scott and Dorsey and myself have probably been in the washing machine of a wreck many times, but when you actually finish that, all that energy has been dissipated. So what's happened here, and this is not the car, by the way, that was in the accident, but that monocoque, it's a one-piece carbon fiber that really extends from here, just where there's wheel arches, all the way to here, which is where the engine bay is, and the rest of it literally falls off and dissipates that energy. You see spikes of, I mean, well into the 100G and more at the moment of impact. But because everything breaks off, like IndyCar, you see those amazing wrecks on the front straight sometimes. And, you know, the people walk away. If I mean, like one of the most famous ones with Earnhardt, and it just stops in the wall. Those are the ones that hurt. So Alan, although he is shaken and stirred, he's probably very lucky that the car bounced all the way down the guardrail and came to a stop. And that is modern technology, and that is why these teams spend so much money on exotic materials and relentless testing, because, you know, this is a sport. It's not a sport that you shouldn't go home with on a Sunday night. So glad Alan's well, but, you know, modern technology is on our side for the moment.
That one-piece monocoque for the Audi R18 is manufactured by Dallara in Italy.
You're lucky if it doesn't happen to you. That's luck. You know, in situations like that, you're fortunate. And you know, the other piece is coming into play when you're talking about those guys on the other side of the guardrail. We hope all those guys are okay. And it's also going to be interesting to see if we're going to have a delay because they have to do some repairs.
All right, let's hear from the man, one of the men in that terrible, terrible incident. Greg, take it away.
Anthony Beltois, obviously just a frightening incident. I believe you had just made a pit stop and were back out. What happened from your perspective?
I just do my pit stop. I go outside of the pit, past the chicken dollop. I was behind two Porsche, fighting with these two Porsche. I check my mirror at the exit of the dollop. I saw nothing, so I go in the corner, and I heard a big shock on my rear, and I go in the gravels. I saw Inoji in the roof. That's it. I don't know.
You were able to get the car around and bring it into the garage. Any idea at this point the damage on it?
I think so, because we are very, very lucky. I'm very sorry for Audi, but I think our car will be gone.
Okay, so basically you never even saw it coming.
Never, I never saw it. The problem is the Audi is quicker than us at 40, 50 kilometers in the corner. So you can check your mirror 100 meters before, but the car is there. You did not see it, so it's too quick.
Absolutely. I'm very glad you're all right, Anthony. Good luck. Thanks so much. Bon chance. And obviously one of the concerns there, we've talked about it, the visibility on those Audis, I mentioned it earlier, was when can you tell if you're clear of that car you're overtaking? Nasty moment.
Let's take another look at it. Here we see Alan down to the inside. And, you know, two things there that from the interview of Beltois, essentially saying he didn't see it as he was coming down. He looked at his mirrors, the Audis weren't there, then suddenly they close on him. And then he talked about the cornering potential of the Audi compared to his car. It's massively different, but this year with these power reductions on the P1s, that closing speed is not as great. So it's going to create some issues throughout the course of this race in terms of chances being taken. But that is a wild ride for Alan McNish.
One of his teammates was watching from the Audi pit box. Let's hear from him now. Jamie?
Dindo Capello, I was watching your reaction as you saw the video for the first time. What goes through your mind when you see your co-driver go through something like that?
It was a big mix of emotion, and first of all, I was sitting next to Tom, and we didn't realize it was an Audi. We just get scared about any car he was involved in this scary accident, and then when we realized it was an Audi and it was our car, was something unbelievable. First of all, the first thought is just was for Alan, is still for Alan. I'm just waiting for him coming here. I really would like him to walk in the pit, and then I will be okay.
We did see Alan get out of the car and walk away from the car. What does that say about the safety and all of the investment that Audi puts into keeping you drivers safe?
That is something which it sounds like an advert, but it's not an advert. It's really something that comes from my heart. I always said that I would not race in Le Mans with any cars, because it's such a dangerous race. The speed is so high that I'm just, I feel confident because I'm driving an Audi. I saw how many money they spend for safety, and once I'm in the cockpit of my Audi, I feel safe. And even in such a, I would say, scary accident, I know that the impact has been really, really hard. But in this occasion, you really thank God that you are driving an Audi, because I know how much they work for that, and they prove once again that safety first.
Always safety first, and there are lots of us waiting to see Alan walk back into pit lane. Thank you, Dindo.
Interestingly enough, it's one of the reasons why multi-time Formula One world champion Alain Prost refuses to drive here, that he does not trust the level and skill of the other drivers in this multi-class format. It's one of the things that makes Le Mans, but not everybody is a fan of it. We'll be back after this. We're back at Le Mans, and let's relive the opening hour of the 79th running of this event. And Audi looking good at the beginning. There was that normal, that typical jostling for position. Alan McNish looking for a way through. The first of the early incidents involved the Aston Martin of Darren Turner. Doesn't really tell us much, but maybe a problem with the left rear.
Yeah, possibly. Quick spin there at the first chicane and stuck in the gravel. He eventually makes his way back. Hops out. We hear there may be alternator issues with that car as well.
Don't know if it has been retired. We'll come back with that. It was a great start by the Signatech Nissan and Frank Mallieu until this happened on the rear left.
And that could be as a result of the gravel that we talked about getting up on the racetrack. It's very sharp. Cut down rear tire, then the big one.
The big one is right, Dorsey. Alan McNish going on the inside of Anthony Beltoise. And watch this. It is frightening, frightening stuff. Gets clipped that end wall. That throws the car up in the air. Debris is strewn everywhere amongst corner marshals and photographers. And in what looks like could be the worst possible result, comes out with a positive. And that positive can only be that Alan McNish was able to stand on his own 2 feet and walk away from one of the most frightening crashes you'll ever see at Le Mans. And it drew the applause of the team and the head of Audi Motorsport, Dr. Wolfgang Ulrich. Frightening closing speeds between the classes of cars. And Calvin, you said it off air so aptly, you only realize how fast they're going when it goes wrong.
Yeah, they're just like a projected missile at that point. I mean, he just scoots across that gravel trap. It's really not doing much with the speed they're carrying. They just bounce across that. And thank goodness those massive pieces, that corner that was ripped off the car with the wheel and everything is a massive piece. And it looked like it avoided any of the photographers and other media that were back behind that barrier.
You know, the Ferrari driver, Beltoise, just had made his pit stop. He was coming out, came out from underneath the Dunlop Bridge, checked his mirrors, nothing there, went ahead for his corner, and that's the closing speeds that we talk about.
It's a closing speeds, but it's a bad decision. That was just a bad decision. I mean, even from a champion driver, that was a bad decision to try and thread the needle like that. Because not only was that Ferrari sitting there, but right in front of him were 2 Porsches that were also going at significantly less speed. It should have been one of those, let's just take a breath, let's get through a next turn like Timo Bernard, his teammate, did, instead of trying to be this hero in less than an hour.
The positive is that McNish is okay. The negative for Audi's campaign, it's just made Peugeot's day a lot easier.
Yeah, 2 bullets left in the Audi gun, and that is massive. 33% of your chance of victory just went out of the door.
Well, that will be a wake-up call, though, I guarantee you, to every driver that has not got in the car yet. You see the car underneath the tarp there, it'll probably remain there the whole race more than likely.
It's going to be probably a lengthy yellow while they do some massive repairs on the...
Yeah, they got to replace that guardrail.
On the guardrail there.
You know what's weird, guys? It's almost like a change of dynamic. If you think about Peugeot versus Audi over the last few years, it was Peugeot who were making these mistakes. We saw it at Spa, you know, 1 round ago in the ILMC, where Audi were fast and they made little mistakes, little errors through the course of the race. It's almost like it's changing. If you didn't know, if you just looked at the results and what happened, you'd say it was the opposite way around. Peugeot were making these mistakes from the drivers and from the crew.
That's what happens instead of letting the race come to you, trying to force your hand, trying to force the race, trying to make something happen and it's not there. Audi has always been so good at that, but Calvin, as you so greatly said there, is that it looks like it's flipped. It looks like Audi's the one now trying to force something to happen instead of letting it come back to them.
And why would you force it in the first hour of a 24-hour race? You know, that's the issue here. I mean, basically, 1 hour in.
Quick update on some other positions. You see one of the 2 Corvette C6Rs there. It's looking good for the boys from Detroit. Ollie Gavin leads the GTE Pro class, and Olivier Beretta, his longtime friend and co-driver, is second in that class. The Flying Lizard, the 81 machine in the GT Am division, with Seth Nyman, Darren Law, and Spencer Pumpelly on debut, is second in class. So for some of our American teams, it's looking good. We're hearing as much as another half an hour under caution here at Le Sarthe for the repair of that wall. Justin?
No, there's nothing yet. Yeah, well, right now you can see the Jean Todt coming towards us, and actually he's heading into the building. Nothing to do with the Alain Matniche accident, but when they first arrived and the police got out, I did actually think, remember, road accidents, even race accidents, are a serious issue here in France, and I remember being held up once in a race down here when I crashed, and I thought I'd actually done it on the public road. It felt so odd. But Alain is inside. The press officer, Martin Pass, is in there with him. What I'd like to try and do is get a report from Martin on Alain's sort of spirits and condition, but obviously he walked in there under his own steam. But guys, listen, I'm listening to us throw him under the bus. He did make a mistake, and I know that Dorsey and Scott and myself and Brian and all of us and Calvin, we've made some brilliant moves that just for the want of quarter of an inch would have been an absolute mess. So I know it's always down to those last minute decisions, but boy oh boy, these guys are really at the top end of their sport. And even though it was a mistake, I mean, it's always a mistake waiting to happen, isn't it? That is the pressure everyone is under.
I don't think it's always a mistake. I disagree totally. I think, yeah, maybe a little suck up there going on, but you know, even at the champion, you do make mistakes, and that was clearly at less than an hour in. That was a massive mistake, no matter who you are, and trying to thread the needle like that, trying to do what you do. I just disagree. I think it was just a very, very poor decision made, and unfortunately, it's taken one of the Audis out, and hopefully none of the people on the other side of that fence were hurt, because I mean, just looking at that and some of the guys that went down on the other side, I just hope and pray that everybody is okay.
So we will wait for more from the officials at Circuit de la Sarthe as far as the fix on the fence. And for all involved, it'll be more time cruising under this full course caution.
Speed's coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans is brought to you by Chevrolet and America's premier sports car, Corvette.
Hi, I'm Oliver Gavin. I'm here with Corvette Racing, and I'm here at Le Mans. It's my 11th time of racing this race, and I've been fortunate enough to win it 4 times. I'd like to now take you on a lap around Le Mans, this world-famous racetrack, in my Corvette C6R.
So here I am, driving down pit lane, 37 miles an hour, ready for my lap 8.3 miles around the world-famous Le Mans track. So racing out in first gear, to second, into third, just nice and gently through the first curve here into the Dunlop chicane, down to second, taking a little bit of curb here on the inside, then back over to the right, a little bit of curb there. Don't try not to go on the exit curb. Accelerating hard, second, into third, and fourth down here. This is quite a challenging corner. Turning, braking, down to third. This is the S's in third gear. Back slightly, hard on the pad, a little bit of curb on the right-hand side. Up into fourth, and then onto the brakes again. Down to third, carrying your speed into and through Tête Rouge, onto the Mulsanne straight. Then up to fourth, and then into fifth. You'll see here, there the marshals and other signs indicating where you are on the track. The flashing lights sometimes that appear at night. Coming down, this is the fastest part of the track now, reaching speeds of up to 180 miles an hour around about now. There the cafes on the left-hand side, coming up to the 200-meter board, usually braking just after that for this corner of the chicane. Down into second gear, taking a little bit of curb on the right-hand side, very tricky left-hander here, car usually understeers here, back on the power, nice and early, second gear, accelerating up through third. The road is very rutted at this point. You have to be very careful as you're changing lanes. The car can get dragged from one place to another. You also have to be very careful watching in your mirrors for the P cars because they can be approaching very, very quickly. Back up into sixth gear now, passing more marshals, and they're all ready, watching for any incidents. And into the second chicane here on the Bullseye Straight, braking just before the 100-meter board. Again, second gear, take a little bit of curb on the inside here, then back to the right. Very slippery here in the rain, have to be careful of the bumps here on the left-hand side, and hard on the power, third, and then up to fourth. Again, the road is very rutted here with all the trucks that come up and down here, and up to sixth. Coming down into the world-famous Bullseye corner, one of the slowest corners on the track. You can actually enter with an awful lot of speed here, braking just after the 100 board, clipping that curb just on the right-hand side there, down to second gear, carry a lot of speed through this corner, a lot more than you think, very, very close to the apex, and then run out onto the exit curb. Again, out of there in second gear, accelerating hard again. Corner coming up now is Indianapolis. Be very, very tricky here about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. It's very, very sunny, and you can hardly see where you're going until you get into the shadow of the trees. Braking just after the 200 board. Carrying speed in fifth gear here. Really trying to carry the speed in and hard on the brakes into the left hand of Indianapolis. This is third gear. And accelerating hard out of there. Trying to run on the grass. Then up to another famous corner in Arnage. Very, very slippery here. You have to really overslow the car. Otherwise, you'll easily understeer into those tyres on the exit there. Hard on the power, traction control working hard. Underneath the bridge. Working my way up through the gears again. Couple of little kinks. Not really a straight, but it's flat out. And you're making sure you're well over to the left-hand side, trickiest corner on the track for braking. Big bump just here, and on entry as you go into the corner. Try and keeping it on the apex curb on the right hand of the first part of the Porsche curves, then flick it back to the left. Trying to touch a little bit of curb there. You're in fourth gear now. Touching this curb a little bit on the left, and then settling the car for the long right-hander. You might be down to third here. And then you come into the Corvette corner here, third gear, just a little bit of curb on the inside, and then all the way on the outside, tricky corner that is off camber, can catch a lot of people out. Last little bit of straight before the final couple of corners, down into third gear for this chicane, over the curb on the inside, both of those corners, then down to second, taking the curb as well, trying to carry the speed out onto the front straight here. Finishing the lap here at Le Mans.
Obviously that was pre-recorded, but it was appropriate because Ollie leads the class, the GTE Pro Division. Here's the top 10 overall, though. It is still an Audi 1-2 as the number 3 Audi gets loaded onto the flatbed. We've got encouraging news. Perhaps within the next 7 or 8 minutes, we will go racing again. P2, that's how it looks at the moment with 48-49, and then we pick up the defending champs in the 42, the Stracker boys. It's a Corvette 1-2 at the moment as we stand in the Pro Division, and in the AM, there we go, look, the Flying Lizard sitting second. Back in a moment, and Brian Till will step in. Welcome back to the 79th running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Brian Till with you now as Lee Diffie takes a short break. Calvin Fish, Dorsey Schrader, Scott Pruitt still in the booth, and we are still under full course caution. As you see one of the prototypes on pit road, the good news is about 6 minutes left before the repair crew believes they will have that guardrail repaired after the crash by Alan McNish. The other really good news is that we saw Alan McNish climb from what was left of his number 3 Audi. For more, let's head down to the Audi camp and Greg Kramer.
Tom, obviously just a frightening accident. The good news was seeing Alan crawl out of the car. I'm sure you've watched it, obviously. What's your take on it?
Yeah, the car was going beautifully. The mechanics have done a fantastic job, and all 3 Audis at front, it looked really nice. The accident was terrible, frightening. Thanks God nothing happened to any spectators. That's what I hear. And the photographers, there was quite a big group in just that area. The barrier did a good job, and the monocoque did a fantastic job. And in that sense, to see Alan coming out, obviously with adrenaline. He's in the medical center now, and we want to hear more good news from him, but I'm sure he will feel some pain in his body.
It looked like somewhat of an aggressive move, and I'm wondering, was there any kind of an indication of a problem on the car that that like a throttle issue or something that got him in there so hot?
I mean, I saw the replay once, but to be honest, immediately when I understood it was an Audi, and obviously thought about the driver, and then a few seconds later I understood it was Alan, but there was no radio contact. So to be honest, I have not really spent a lot of time in seeing that. There was one replay. What you would think is that the Ferrari has seen Timo, the #1 car, behind him, but it's really a tricky one. You pass many times going underneath cars there, and they leave the room. It's very difficult to see and judge. I would like to hear the judgment from Alan, from Timo, and the driver in the Ferrari. But anyway, above all, it looks like no person has been hurt.
Well, and the other side of it too is that obviously this is a brand new car built to these new regulations with light technology. Still, clearly Audi is making a pretty safe car.
Yeah, it's fantastic. Audi have done a great job in that. Some people said, good, it was now a close car. I just said it's good to be in an Audi.
Tom, obviously not going to get a shot at that 9th win. We know that's really not the important thing right now until we find out how Alan is, but tough luck for you, and we look forward to next year.
Yes, personally, yes, but we are still going. Just need to have Alan back and hear him talking.
Thanks, Tom.
Pleasure.
Well, while I'm out the back by the medical center waiting for Alan Manish to arrive, my father, fresh from a rather nice afternoon sojourn and lunch, is on his way to the Ancien Pilote. Now, Dad, you won 8 24-hour races in Le Mans and Daytona. But you lived through an era when you wouldn't have walked away from that crash that Alan just had.
No, I mean, you wouldn't have done 5 years ago, I don't reckon. I mean, we were very, I mean, the 917, our feet were 1 foot from the front of the car. You know, we were the bit that you hit first. We would have been killed. Plus, of course, but I mean, the cars are safer but also all the tires around the guardrail, and you sort of absorb it, flip it up in the air. We would have just hit it and it would have just killed us. The actual impact with the actual slowing down would have killed us. I mean, it's unbelievable.
But our sport, like I think every sport, only reacts to the pace of technology, and the safety therein only sort of goes parallel to it every time there is a fatality in our sport, right? And you've lived through it. We only go with safer barriers, we only go with more runoff and gravel and things every time someone gets really hurt. How do you temper? I mean, what do you think about the speeds of cars these days? I mean, we love to drive them, but
the problem, I mean, one of the things, we were doing 246 miles an hour here back in 1971 in a car with our feet out the front, which is lunacy, but we didn't know any different. We were all crazy. But nowadays, of course, they put more corners in. So it's making it more difficult for the Alan McNishes and these other guys to overtake. And the guy in the slower car is making his line through the corner, trying to battle with the car who's 100 yards in front. He can't look in his mirror the whole way down the exit. He's going, I wonder where he is. He's looking, he's having a race too. And where it happened, over the top and down the other side, is terribly difficult for the guy in the Ferrari. It was possibly his fault, maybe, but the other guys are up his backside, and when he came over the start-finish line, they were half a mile behind. Then they're up his back for half a mile later, and he's going, where did they come from? And there were 2, and he probably didn't know there were 2. So I think it was more of just a bad calculation on everybody's part. And there's too much they have to overtake in the corners, but there's too many corners. And I don't think doing 240 miles an hour is a problem.
Yeah, and of course, in the end, racing drivers want to go fast. So back up to the booth, but you know, it's a safer era, but the speeds are jolly fast in the corners.
Now, you know, I tend to believe what Derek's saying is true. We ran over 215, 218 miles an hour in the straightaway. These cars do this speed in the corner, and there's where the equation gets wrong. These cars have so much downforce, they're so fast in the corner. The accidents always happen in the corner, not in the straightaway.
5-time winner Derek Bell giving you his point of view, and I think probably one of the most pertinent points that he made was Anthony Beltoise in the Ferrari cannot just disappear. That GT car is at the limit itself.
And I think the thing is, though, Brian, I mean, Alan has to read into that. There's been a lot of conversation here over the last 30 minutes or so in terms of did Alan make a mistake. You've got to read the traffic. You've got to think about it's the first hour of the race. You've got to be conservative. I mean, run the car flat out. These are a 24-hour sprint race, but you can't afford to take big chances in traffic. Timo, I mean, the read really is what Timo did. Timo was leading the race. He saw the traffic. There's other Porsches right up in front. If Alan had made the gap through there, you'd have to wonder, were the Porsches then going to become his next problem?
Well, as terrifying as the crash was, the best news that we've seen, Alan McNish climb from the remains of his Audi R18, the 79th running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Plenty of excitement already. We'll have more when we come back to the Circuit de la Sarthe.
Speed's coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans is brought to you by Mazda. Zoom, zoom.
Caution flags still wave from here at Le Mans. The number 8 Peugeot, Frank Montagny, behind the wheel on pit road for his second stop. And looks like a nose change going on right now. And I think it's more than a nose. It looks like they're going to work on master cylinders.
And if there's anything in the foot box on these cars, it typically takes a lot of work there, and I think that's what he's diving into, Dorsey. It looks like he's trying to get into the foot box possibly. It looks like all of the master cylinders have been dropped forward to allow them access to the foot box area.
Remember last year when the Peugeots had the problem, the very first Peugeot out was a suspension piece that had pulled off the top, and now an obvious problem with the master cylinders. You saw it there as the nose came off.
Actually, it's not, Brian. What they've done is they've got a quick release for those are just the reservoirs for the master cylinders. They've got a quick release for that. Move it out of the way so they can get up into the footwell area of the monocoque.
I wonder if a piece of gravel or something had got in there. Maybe Frank was feeling something during the opening stint.
That's frustrating if you get something down by your pedals, that's for sure.
Fortunately, under caution, they can afford to take this time. Now, there's 3 pace cars. When we get a caution here at Le Mans, because of the length of the race circuit, there are actually 3 pace cars that are released. One will go from pit lane, one from the first chicane, and one from Mulsanne corner. And again, you know, you're covering almost 3 miles with each of those. And if you make a pit stop, you're not allowed to rejoin within the same segment. You're basically going to go at the end of the pit lane. You have to wait for the green light, and you'll join the next pace car in line. Now, under the caution period, that pace lap will be about 6 minutes, so they're separated by about 2 minutes each.
The good news is it is happening under yellow right now, and if you're seeing some of the guys who are doing tire changes, they're doing a driver change, you lose the least amount of time right now under yellow doing these full stops, as we call them. A lot of extensive work going on in the master cylinders right there. There must be something pretty serious going on with the brakes, would be my guess, for them to be doing that much depth of repair.
And Montagny third in the order, third overall as he came to pit road with this problem. So the repair has been accomplished, the nose going back on.
What they're going to try and do, they need to do this work within about that 2-minute period. They don't want to drop 2 pace cars behind, because what doesn't happen, they don't group everyone together when we go back to green. Essentially, it goes green at 3 different spots around the racetrack. So if you go 2 pace cars behind the leader, you're going to start 2/3 of a lap behind.
Of course, you saw those those master cylinder reservoirs, 3 of each, because one for the front brakes, one for the rear brakes, one for the clutch, and they're behind that working. So maybe they're working on the master cylinder itself. Maybe there's a leak and it's all over the floorboard, which is very slippery. I don't know.
Uh-oh, he's getting stopped on the way out. I wonder if that's for the second or the third section like you're talking about, Calvin.
Yeah, it's hard to say. If there weren't a lot of activity down in pit lane, he could literally be the next person. You're going to wait for the train of cars to go, so there'll be another pace car appear here shortly. And I believe it was Stefan Sarazan jumped in after Frank Montagny. When the train of cars goes by, he will then be released with the green light.
So problems for Peugeot as well. Obviously, the problems for Audi much more severe as Montagny heads back out onto the circuit. For more, let's check back in with Justin Bell.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Obviously, we've been waiting to find out news on Alan McNeish's condition. We saw him walk out of the car. Adrenaline does a lot for you on that one. It can make you feel stronger than you are. So he's been in there in the medical center behind me. He's been inspected by the track doctors, and all these big race teams have their own physicians as well, and the German ones are certainly excellent, and they've been in there, and they've passed him fit to this point, although they've recommended he goes to the local hospital where he's going to obviously get a brain scan and get checked out. Because I just spoke with Martin Pass, who's the press officer with Audi, and he was carrying Alan's helmet. I looked at it. I mean, there's no marks on it, but he still rung his bell, so to speak, when he obviously had that accident. So better to be cautious. Obviously, no point in staying here at the circuit. And then I just saw him head off in a little ambulance on his way to the local hospital. So great news, guys. He is obviously fighting fit and probably going to be a little tender tonight, though. So, Greg, I don't know what you got up your end, but I'm sure Audi are still digesting this.
Well, I would certainly think that they are. Obviously, that was such a heavy shunt, and I'm not at all surprised that they probably wanted to take him in and just give him a bit more thorough check over with some more advanced equipment, etc. But I have a comment on the car that Alan got into, and also a question for you guys in the booth. The comment is, it's amazing the slings and arrows of racing fortune, in the sense that that exchange of energy did what it did to Alan, to the Ferrari. It broke a shock mount and did some bodywork damage. I just checked in. They're just buttoning it up. They said it was absolutely fixable, and it wasn't that severe damage at all. So just that little bit of a tick, it's amazing what that energy exchange could do. But my question is, and Calvin, you may have answered it, I've gone up and down my end of the pit lane, talked to every one of the players that I could find. Not a one of them are saying that they are going to stop prior to this green, this going back to green, to top off, maybe put a different set of tires on. Scott, you were talking about this is the time to do those long exchanges, drivers and tires. I would have thought with this long yellow, and as long as they've been out circulating, maybe some of the guys further back in the order in each class might throw that little bit of a roll of the dice. What's up?
Yeah, I agree with you, Greg, for two reasons. I mean, A, they've been out there quite a while, topping off with fuel, but more importantly, the tires. You're going to have a tremendous amount of pickup, potential debris out on the race circuit, cut down a tire. I would have thought the safer route, remember, it's a 24-hour race. We're only just into hour 3, is to come in, top him off, and put some fresh rubber on the race car.
And that's what, that's what I thought we were seeing with the Peugeot when it made its stop. Unfortunately, it looked like it was a little deeper. It looked like it had some brake issues. It all is going to be interesting how this plays out. I mean, it all goes back into strategy and how you want this race to play out for you. Even talking about an hour in, it's still going to add up by the time you get to that 24-hour period.
We're here now on Montagny. He may have been feeling some kind of brake bias issue. What you can do inside the cockpit is adjust the brake pressure between the front and rear of the car with a dial. And sometimes that will actually bind up within the brake pedal itself, so maybe the mechanics are having to go in there, add some lubrication so the driver could actually change the brake bias setting. That will actually be something that will really give the driver fits over the course of 24 hours and becomes a safety issue too. If you've got too much rear bias, it'll be locking up the rears, almost doing like an e-brake turn. If you get into heavy traffic, you've got to jump on the binders.
Well, interesting, when we looked at the R18 the other day, Calvin, if you'll remember, the brake bias is on the steering wheel and the cable turns via an electronic motor. So wonder if the Peugeot has that same type of an adjustment, and if so, is it electric or is it mechanical?
Well, if it binds up, what happens is that cable is like a speedometer cable, and if it binds up on the one end and it's turning on the other via electric motor or not, what happens is it does like a jump rope. It gets a big loop in it, and when it does one loop over, it locks up solid.
Let's go back down to pit road, and Greg.
Yeah, Brian, just a final follow-up on the number 58 Ferrari. It's run under the banner Luxury Racing, which is a French entry, but 12 Risi Competizione crew members are here staffing one of the cars, no doubt lending some of their expertise on the fix to this one. And so this team has very much a familiar feel in many, many ways. Now, they were just about to bring the car out. Now it's gone back up on the jacks. It looks like they're going to do a little bit of work under the front of the car. Obviously, since they're in anyway, go through it, fix whatever they can, but it was just about to roll out and get back underway, obviously losing a lot of time.
Well, and while Risi may not be here competing, certainly, as you mentioned, Greg, the team, many of the team members are. It was Risi who won back-to-back in Ferraris in the GT class in 2008 and 2009. So obviously that crew
very, very well educated as far as what you need to do here at Le Mans to make sure that not only is the car fast, but it continues staying that way out on track.
Yeah, this luxury racing team is a new entry really to these ranks. They ran the Porsche Matmut Carrera Cup in 2010 and also in the International GT Series. And they've employed 12 of the Risi personnels primarily to work on the 59 machine, which is driven this year by Jamie Mello, who's the regular driver for Risi in the American Le Mans Series. They've also got Stefan Ortelli on board, who has driven with Risi before. So, as you mentioned, Brian, they've got the experience. They won back-to-back years in 2008 and 2009, and they actually brought guys over for the pre-test a couple of months ago also.
Now, as we get ready to go back to green, a number of things have happened. One, we've been almost an hour under yellow. We're talking about, you know, the tire pickup. We're talking about the cooling off of the tires on the Peugeots as well as the Audis. They're awful big tires on the front, so that's going to take a little bit. The other piece that falls into this is the separation with the GT cars now. We saw the Corvette just in front of our leader in a prototype class.
I'll tell you one thing here, thinking about the strategy of this. If you pit under caution, you have to wait for that next pace car. Think about this. We may even see someone pit as we go back to green, because it's about a 35-second delta down pit lane. You can do that change in about a minute, so it may actually save you a minute by waiting for the green flag to go.
It's going to be interesting to see, because this, again, I keep going back to strategy. When you have all these cars, now 5 cars this close up in the LMP1 category, any little bit is going to help. Any, you know, a second, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, all that adds up after a 24-hour period.
Of course, that 3 pace car situation is unique to this race and to this racetrack because of its 8.5-mile length. One pace car couldn't gather that whole field in a safe manner if there were something out there that they had to get it. You know,
think of the pace cars like a clock door. So you imagine there's one at 12 o'clock, one at 4 o'clock, one at 8 o'clock position around this racetrack. And just reiterating, if you make a pit stop and you're in like the 1 hour, 2 hour, 3 hour mark on the clock, if you make a pit stop, you've got to wait for the 5, 6, and 7 hour mark on the clock in terms of the lap. So it's really a lot of strategy in here. I wouldn't be surprised to see one of these guys in this lead segment behind the lead pace car suddenly dive in. One thing we know, there's really not a lot of protocol. We spoke to Brad Kettler last year about when we go back to green, what do you hear? He said we don't always hear from the organizer. We'll be eating an ice cream and suddenly the cars blow by, we're green.
We were hearing that the safety car would be in this lap, but when you talk about those 3 safety cars, one of the problems that we have run into in years past is the different safety cars dropping at a different time, not always pulling off track together and allowing the racing to continue. And as you talk about that 3 stack up of cars, all of a sudden one has a bit of an advantage. See Hugh DeShaunac in his suit there. Remember DeShaunac and his team Orica Matmut that won at Sebring. What an emotional victory it was for that man, that team. And that was a diesel powered Peugeot, but the old Peugeot, if you will, the 908 HDI, and that Peugeot with the smaller front tires, the larger rear tires, unlike the new ones with the same size tire essentially on all 4 corners.
I might be taking a gamble with one of my cars and have it come in just before or just as they're getting ready to go to green, just to get somebody out of sequence just a little bit, because any of a number of things can happen in this race. If you got 2 or 3 cars fighting for that position, that could be the difference.
So we see the 58 car being wheeled out. One of the rules is you can't just drive out of the garage. You have to actually bring the car back out, put it parallel there to pit lane, and then drop it and let it go. So these are a lot of rules that the teams have to be very careful of in terms of penalties, and some of them are quite severe. So, for example, if a driver reverses down pit lane, it's immediate exclusion from the race. So
don't do that.
You really need to read that rule book. It's a lot different to other series.
I thought you didn't drive out because the mirrors stick out a long way and you may hit them on the side.
It's like he already hit those on the side.
Yeah, absolutely.
Heard a round of applause for the mechanics for putting this thing back together expediently and getting it back in the race again. And you just can't tell the story of how much work goes into this race.
Boy, is that car beautiful. That new 458 is a tremendous looking car. But looking at those Audis, they were really weaving around, warming up those tires, really trying to scrub the tires more importantly. So if they're doing that, I guess they're going to stay out, but you never know. They could be just misleading the competition.
Speaking of misleading, we were told 1 more lap. Now we're being told 1 more. So while we spend 1 more lap behind the caution here at the Circuit de la Sarthe, the 79th running of the 24 Hours of Le Mans, we'll take the opportunity to take a quick break. We'll be right back. Today, live coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans continues right here on Speed. Winning this epic race takes more than skill. You must have strategy, endurance, and luck. Live coverage of the 24 Hours of Le Mans continues today, 3:30 Eastern, only on Speed. It continues right now as we've gone back to green here at Le Mans, riding on board one of the Peugeots, I believe may be the number 7, or perhaps I think it's the number 8 actually, of Stefan Sarrazin, as he gives chase. Benoit Trillier out in front of Timo Bernhard right now. The Audi is running 1-2, and if you are just joining us, they run 1-2 because the number 3 car, the number 3 Audi of Alan McNish, a huge impact earlier, but under caution for the better part of an hour, actually just over an hour, just resumed green flag running, and it's Benoit Trillier, after his great pole position run in that brand new Audi R18, who leads.
The crazy thing is they don't wait for the leaders to come to the front stretch before they went green. They are on the back half of the circuit. We went green here, and suddenly you get the word green, green, green. So the Audis decide to stay out, and the one thing about this diesel technology, it saves fuel certainly, but under caution, there's a tremendous fuel save, Dorsey.
Absolutely. I mean, these guys for an hour have just been idling around getting huge mileage, so they don't need that pit stop. We've wondered if they'd come in right then, being separated from where they were on the racetrack to the
Probably what needs a pit stop more is the driver. You know, when you, seriously, I mean, when you're prepping for a race, especially when you know it's going to be dry, you really hydrate, you drink a lot of fluids, and then when you've been running around for over an hour under yellow, I mean, you're not sweating it out. It wants to come out somewhere.
I guess that explains Lee Diffie on the plane on the way back from Paris. Every bottle of water he drank, he kept bugging me to get up out of his seat.
Never let him sit to the outside.
It's always nice when you're getting in and going, oh, sorry, by the way, it's a little warm and a little wet, so be careful.
That's what they normally do to you, too.
Peugeot's running through the chicanes down the Mulsanne, and you get a great idea, if you've never had the opportunity to be there, just how picturesque the Mulsanne can be. It's picturesque when it all goes right. When it all goes wrong, as it did back in 1999 in the Mercedes, it gets very ugly very quickly, but you can see the speed. There's the 42, the Straka Racing entry. That is last year's winner in the LMP2 category.
I think this may be one of the teams choosing that strategy. Stay out, wait for it to go green. You really don't lose anything by doing this because, again, with that segmented pace period there, you can make this green flag stop and you really don't lose any ground whatsoever.
Actually, I think you make ground because when you're doing all this, everybody's just kind of getting up to speed. The lap time isn't there yet. And so you're actually going to gain lap time, either the guy behind you or if the guy in front of you if you're trying to catch somebody.
Last year, it was the 42 that took the victory in the LMP2 category. They used strategy and speed. This year, down on speed just a little bit, but they head back on track. You look at the 48 flash by, but let's head back down to pit road and Justin Bell.
I'm down with U.S. Vice President of Performance and Motorsports for Chevrolet, Jim Campbell. Now, we go back quite a long way. The last time I saw you at Le Mans, we were over there announcing something.
You know what? It's great to see you again. You know, we announced actually in June of '99 that we were going to come here and race at Le Mans 2000. And we did it. You were one of our drivers, so it's great to see you again. And coming to Le Mans is very special. The toughest endurance road race ever. And what it takes to win here is tremendous preparation, teamwork, and a little luck. Also, we learn a lot from road racing that makes our production cars better. The Corvette ZR1 is better because of road racing. Our Corvette Z06 the same thing. We have a carbon edition. We learn so much from racing that we apply right over to production. So it's great to be at Le Mans.
I mean, you see the technology partner that you have with Pratt & Miller is almost one of the most pioneering, outstanding relationships in modern motorsport. There must be great synergy between them and the folks at your offices, effectively.
There's no question. Our chief engineer, Tad Juchter, on the Corvette team, and our engineering team here on the Corvette race team work hand in hand to learn from racing and apply it to our next generation Corvette. So exciting stuff coming, but the cars, we are better because of racing for sure.
Now, technology as a viewer, obviously I want people to keep watching a TV broadcast right now, but it's a great relationship that Chevrolet have with speed. And I believe if they manage to go to our website, they can ride as passengers.
Well, you can ride shotgun in the 73 Corvette with Olivia Beretta right now. You go to speed.com/Corvette. and you can ride for 24 hours with the drivers in the 73 Corvette. It's really unique, and so when speed is off the air, we encourage the fans to tune in online. It's going to be great. And by the way, we're really proud to be here. It's our centennial year for Chevrolet, 100 years old. Our founder, Louis Chevrolet, was a great engineer, innovator, and a racer, and here we are racing at one of the greatest road races ever. Proud to be here.
Couldn't have said it better. Brilliant, Jim. And Jim is very responsible for this program. Up to the booth.
Well, we just see the Audis pitting there, and I think the strategy there was they didn't want to do under caution because they dropped back to that next segment. And when they did go green, they had clear track ahead of them, so they could really lay down a great lap time, then come back in. Didn't take tires, and I think a lot of that comes down to the new technology, the tire sensors. They can really monitor what's going on if there's any pressure drop on those race cars.
That's exactly right, and they took advantage of trying to gain as much speed as they could in a short period of time. And we also saw they did not take tires, so this is their third stint on the same set of tires.
Second pit stops for both the number 1 and the number 2 Audi. Greg, what did you see on those stops?
Well, as you guys saw on the world feed, I mean, pretty much just routine. All they did was top it off, do the windscreen, and send them back out again. So obviously very happy with what they're seeing in terms of tire wear and fuel. And, you know, obviously, as you said, Cal, a lot of green track, just staying on their program then and taking advantage of all of that track. Now, we did have a couple of teams, though, that did take advantage, I think, of what you gentlemen were talking about in terms of strategy. The Orica team, Matmut Peugeot, the car that won Sebring last year's car, came in late in that yellow and did a top up and took off. Then the Signatech Nissan, which was the pole sitter in LMP2, doing the same thing right at the end of the caution. Then the Straka car, which won last year in LMP2 with the HPD power plant, they came in on the green, and I think that Scott Pruitt, pretty much what you were talking about, right at the end to be able to save time. And Calvin, you were talking about it, you might actually make up a little bit of time doing that. And then the number 80 Lizards car running in the Pro division with the Pro drivers, they did a green stop as well. And along with fuel, they also looked like they put some tape over the radiator inlets on the front of the car, so apparently wanting to have that thing running a little bit warmer than it was. So lots of activity, just a bit of a flurry here, and then of course we watch the Audis come in.
One thing when they put that tape on the radiator grill, it can actually change the balance of the race car. Like a NASCAR gives you a bit more front downforce. You have to watch for that.
We'll be back to the 79th running of the 24-hour Le Mans right after this. Stick around. If you can't get enough of the 24 hours of Le Mans, coverage will continue shortly on speed.com with uninterrupted live streaming of the race presented by Chevrolet Corvette. So make sure you go to speed.com/Corvette in order to stream 25 hours of coverage. Speed will bring you today of the 24 hours of Le Mans. You ask how that can be? Well, don't forget 30 minutes in and 30 minutes post-race as you watch the number 7 Peugeot. That is your leader, Alexander Wirtz, to the marks.
And while we were gone, the other Peugeot had pitted as well. So all the Peugeots have pitted. They've left the driver and the tires on.
There you see what is allowed during the refueling process. Someone is allowed to clean the windshield. You're allowed to brake and tire technician. They can't do anything, but they can just monitor tire wear and brake wear. They also allow someone to go in and get that memory card. There's a memory card that is taken out of the car, then downloaded with the organizers to make sure all of the data that's coming from that car is correct and no rules are being broken.
And while he was in there getting the data card, he switched the drink bottle.
What a great shot there.
Yeah, that's great.
As a driver, you're sitting there, man, and you're just like, you're ready, you're ready, you're ready, you're ready. And then as soon as boom, you're off and going.
It looks so calm behind the wheel as you look there at the two Audis. That position has changed. See, Timo Bernhard has gotten past the number 2 of Benoit Trillier. Justin, what do you have from pit road? What was going on that Peugeot stop?
Well, apart from Michael Waltrip not actually being allowed into his car yet, because I think his teammate Rob Kaufman has just got up to speed for the first time, having sat the whole way through that yellow flag situation. But you were just mentioning about the data. Now, obviously, a lot of things just happened with that yellow flag situation, which is all the team strategy, all that different contingency plans and eventualities they played through so many scenarios in their computer modeling probably didn't allow for a 30 or 40 minute yellow flag scenario. But remember the data they're getting, I think it's over 1,000 channels of data stream are coming in each lap, and like 10 megabytes of information per lap are being received by the engineers. So you can't see it from our pit lane cameras, but behind us there's a reason for these huge Peugeot, Audi, BMW tents. They're almost like villages, compounds. That's where all the engineers who never see the light of day are processing and mining that information. It's only as good as the data and comprehension you can extract. So a lot going on. When they pull that data card, a lot is now being analyzed. And of course, after that yellow flag situation, it's time to start getting on a new program, really, a new driver rotation, not necessarily rotation, but a new strategy will be now in place for everyone.
And it's all about gathering that data that will take you to the finish. You've got to learn more about your fuel mileage, your strategies. How will you win the 79th running of the 24-hour of Le Mans? It's the prize that all of these teams are after. And right now, Timo Bernhard in his Audi out in front. It's Ollie Gavin in the Chevy Corvette that leads in the GTE Pro standings. We'll be back to the Circuit de la Sarthe, the 24 hours of Le Mans, right after this. Stick around. Back at the 24 hours of Le Mans, flying down the Mulsanne in the #1 Audi. Timo Bernhard behind the wheel. You lead here at the 79th running. We asked poll question earlier, who do you think will win the 2011 24 hours of Le Mans? Right now, Audi 63%. I wonder if that's changed after Helen McNish's problem.
It's now 42%.
Yeah. Oh, who is someone else?
Well, that's what I was about to say. I'd like to know what the 12% that someone else.
Someone else. Right now, Timo Bernhard in the #1 R18 flashes by. Right behind him, Benoit Trillier in the #2. Alexander Wirtz in the first of the Peugeots, then Bourdais and Nicolas Lapierre in the #10, the older of the Peugeot 908s, the HDI.
Bourdais, hometown boy, lives right there in Le Mans.
Born in Le Mans. You don't think he's a hometown favorite. Now look at the R18 through the Porsche curves. It is on rails.
Yeah, it really is. Talking to Mike Rockenfeller about this car, he said really the Porsche curves really is it kind of gives you the feel of whether you have a great race car underneath you. And he said, boy, this car is so good through there. And it really comes down to everyone's worked on the efficiency of the aerodynamics this year with less power, but Audi seemed to have gone a little bit more in the downforce direction of having a bit more than Peugeot, and that'll pay dividends through there and in traffic, as we've already seen in the first few hours of this race.
We certainly have seen that. The Peugeot seems that they kind of struggle just a little bit more in traffic, can't quite make those moves as aggressively as the Audis can, and it looks like they're just able to pick and choose and kind of cut their way through just a little bit easier.
See how bumpy the entry there is to turn 1 as they come up there. Alexander Wirtz behind the wheel. You see the rear just hopping at Porpoisen as he's getting on the binders there, going down through a couple of gears for the entry to that chicane.
It's funny you saw the same thing I did, because, I mean, it was, in fact, the back of the car that was hopping around. The front was pretty well planted. That could be because he's on the brake. But, I mean, the back was really jumping there.
And right there through Tete Rouge is where Tom Christensen had his problem in qualifying. Right now, Trillier really closing up on Timo Bernhard as they head down the Mulsanne into the first chicane.
Not for long.
Not for long. On my way by.
It's the draft taking place right there, and I think Trillier will take the lead here. Timo's not going to fight him, and I just like the approach that Timo Bernhard is having in these first few hours. We saw him when he was with McNish there in the incident, and there he lets his teammate take the way.
There's the rest of the broadcast schedule from here on Speed, the 79th running of the 24 hours of Le Mans. Reinhold Jost watches his cars run out front.
Speed's coverage of the 24 hours of Le Mans is brought to you by Audi Motorsports and the new R18 with Audi Ultra Lightweight Technology. Audi, truth in engineering.
Alexander Wirtz flashing down the Mulsanne through the first of the chicane, and right in front is Timo Bernhard in the Audi. Wirtz really beginning to close down a bit, I believe, on Bernhard. And right at this point in time, you really have to wonder, teams just settling into a rhythm, trying to figure out what my tire wear is going to be like, what is my fuel mileage going to be like. I've still got a long way to go.
I really think from Peugeot, they took a very conservative approach to the beginning of this race. And I think what they were maybe looking at is what fuel number can we get? Can we get that 12th lap? And then they can certainly analyze in terms of the telemetry and how much fuel went in on those subsequent pit stops. Okay, can we turn the wick up a little bit, burn a bit more diesel, and still get to that 12 lap mark?
Well, I'm not too sure yet that we've seen a full green stint, you know, because we were just getting to it when Alan had his accident. Then we were behind the pace car for an hour. So, you know, I don't know that we've seen it all yet.
We haven't seen it all yet, and what we're going to see is tire wear. They've had the same set of tires now on for 3 stints, and also fuel economy. I mean, both those things come into play pretty big, and it's going to be interesting to see how that plays over the next few hours.
I mean, look at the clock at the top of your screen. 21 hours and 30 minutes yet to go, and look at that flashing down the Mulsanne. A lot of excitement here. It's been exciting to bring it to you, and the great thing is Speed's going to bring you 25 hours of coverage, the 79th running of the 24 hours of Le Mans. So log on to speed.com. Make sure you catch the rest of the programming right now. Benoit Trillier out in front. It's the Audis running 1-2. Peugeot, the Lion, it is far from giving up. Still a long way to go from Le Mans. We'll see you on speed.com.